Chapter 797, Chu Yifeng is too thick-skinned. After a whole night of fighting, the last place she stood was still in her room. When Hong got up and came to Su Yingxu's place, he was not surprised to see her guest room full of debris. He had a humble and polite smile on his face. "Miss Su, Master wants to bring you to see someone." After saying that, he walked in front and led the way. With such a commanding tone and way of doing things, Su Yingxue had no room to resist. She held the red jade soft whip in her hand and followed him. If she saw Chu Yifeng again, she would fight with him. Even if she couldn't tear his face apart, she'd make sure to knock out one of his teeth. How despicable. Su Yingxue was brought to the top floor. She remembered that the level of the Silver Moon Pavilion represented status. Of course, Chu Yifeng lived on the top floor, and so did Rongsheng. She was already prepared to fight Chu Yifeng, but Alt Hong didn't bring her to Chu Yifeng's place. This was the room furthest away from Chu Yifeng, and it was the quietest yet elegant room. The rays of sunlight shone into the room, and it felt very warm just looking at it. The person who lived here must have an important place in Chu Yifeng's heart. Hong did not open the door. Instead, he opened a corner of the window and let Su Yingxue peek inside. Su Yingxue looked over nonchalantly, but her eyes suddenly widened. "Your Highness." She couldn't control herself and was about to rush in when Hong stopped her. "Miss Su, please don't get agitated. The 9th prince has taken Princess Rongsheng's medicine and is now sleeping peacefully. He hasn't slept for 7 days and 7 nights. If he doesn't sleep now, he won't be able to recover." Su Yingxu's heartache for Chu Yihan. "Your Highness, why did you become like this?" She had expected that when the war broke out, he would lead his troops out. Coupled with the shock of her disappearance, it was reasonable for Chu Yihan's bloodthirst to flare up, but he had not slept for 7 days and 7 nights. How could he endure this? The left side of Su Yingxu's chest was pinched hard by someone. It was so painful that she could hardly breathe. Hong's tone was very calm. Because of the West Pavilion Master's scheme, the 9th prince's bloodthirst acted up on the night of his wedding. His heart was in chaos and his imperial brother tried to kill him again. It was old General Su who tried his best to save the 9th prince's life. However, the Great Qi dynasty and the Great Shang dynasty quickly went to war, and the 9th prince had to lead his troops out. After several bitter battles, his bloodthirst had not been eliminated. He was trapped in the enemy's ambush and was unable to withstand the attack. Did Chu Yifeng save him? Su Yingxue looked through the window at the sleeping Chu Yihan and choked. Hong nodded. "Yes, Master's men brought Miss Rongsheng's powerful tranquilizer and forced 9th prince to fall unconscious." A strong tranquilizer. Su Yingxue had read about it in a book. It was a medicine that she had yet to develop, but Rongsheng had it. She took a deep breath. "When can I see His Highness?" Master's original order was that you shouldn't see 9th prince before he recovers. Princess Rongsheng will be responsible for curing Zhu Wangye. Hong said. "Why don't you let me treat him?" Su Yingxue bit her lip. "Because your medical skills can't compare to Rongsheng's." Chu Yifeng's mocking voice could be heard. "You." Su Yingxu's red jade soft whip swung out. "If you don't know medicine, then don't talk nonsense," Rongsheng said coldly beside him. "Oh." Chu Yifeng's expression was as if he was telling the truth. His shamelessness was beyond the reach of anyone. Chapter 798, She finally met Chu Yihan. Rongsheng explained to Su Yingxue, 9th prince's anger had attacked his heart, causing damage to various organs in his body to a certain extent. He needs an extremely quiet environment to recuperate and cannot be subjected to any heavy stimulation. I'm worried that if you see him now, it might lead to complications. So, I propose waiting for him to recover for a few days before revealing the truth to him. Do you have any objections? Rongsheng's voice remained very cold, like that of an otherworldly fairy, but Su Yingxue could discern the concern in her tone. She nodded in agreement. "Thank you, sister." Rongsheng hummed in acknowledgement and fell silent thereafter. Though she wasn't dressed scantily, and her collar was intentionally pulled up slightly, Su Yingxue still caught a glimpse of the red marks on her body. As Chu Yifeng turned to leave, Su Yingxue silently cursed him, Bastard. Torturing Rong Sheng like this would surely lead to dire consequences. Chu Yifeng's hearing was extraordinary. Upon hearing Su Yingshu's curse, he turned around and hugged Rong Sheng's waist. Su Yingxue is cursing me. Senior sister, aren't you going to reprimand her? Rong Sheng didn't even spare him a glance and headed straight back to her room. She needed to quickly sense the fragrance inside the room. Chu Yifeng had poisoned her. If she stayed away for too long, she would perish outside. That was also why she couldn't escape and couldn't leave him. After Rong Sheng returned to her room, she could only sit on the balcony, continuing to exude that cold beauty. Seeing Chu Yifeng's smile, Ah Hong approached to seek instructions. Master, should we increase Princess Rong Sheng's dosage? Chu Yifeng didn't hesitate to reply, yes, increase it until she can't live without me for the rest of her life. Ah Hong nodded but sighed inwardly, being loved by the master, I wonder if the princess. Is it fortunate or unfortunate? Chu Yifeng doted on Rong Sheng, and she was one of a kind. Once, Chu Yifeng slaughtered everyone in the kitchen because Rong Sheng felt unwell after eating a dish. Yet, he poisoned Rong Sheng daily, monopolizing her and not allowing her to leave his sight for even a second. Otherwise, he would rather destroy Rong Sheng and let her die. With such intense and fervent emotions, ordinary people truly wouldn't be able to handle it. At the door of Chu Yihan's room, Su Yingxue, disguised as a servant, quietly pushed it open. She knew that Chu Yihan couldn't handle any provocations, so she wrapped herself tightly. She even put on makeup to conceal her original eyebrows and deliberately drew thick, long straight eyebrows. To prevent Chu Yihan from recognizing her, she even took a dose of Saint Juan's concocted poison to alter her voice. Carrying the sumptuous dishes, she placed them on the table for Chu Yihan. Approaching the screen, she spoke softly, Your Highness, please dine. There was no response for a long time. After waiting for a quarter of an hour, she finally heard the sound of footsteps. Su Yingxue could tell that his internal injuries were severe. His breathing wasn't as steady as usual. Each step he took felt like a weight on her heart. Her husband, Chu Yihan's divine-like handsome face was pale, devoid of blood. His stoic expression carried a sense of abstinence. However, he seemed somewhat dizzy. As he emerged from the screen, he reached out to steady himself. Su Yingxue immediately moved forward, wanting to grasp his wrist. Your Highness, be careful. Don't touch me. Chu Yihan's movements were swift as he pushed her away. His body swayed from her rejection, and he grabbed onto the screen to steady himself. Seeing his white-knuckled grip on the screen, Su Yingxue desperately wanted to stabilize him. However, Chu Yihan's gaze turned cold as he rebuked, Other than her, no one is allowed to approach me. Leave. Chapter 799. He forbids other women from touching him. Who is she? Why is she so domineering? Su Yingxue exclaimed, stomping her feet in frustration. She is my wife, Chu Yifeng responded. Su Yingxue was shocked by his response. Su Yingxue widened her eyes in astonishment. She was momentarily speechless. I didn't so domineering. I promised her that, apart from her, I would never have any contact with another woman in this world, Chu Yifeng explained. Despite Chu Yihan's evident coughing and unsteady steps, he adamantly refused Su Yingxue's assistance. Gritting her teeth, Su Yingxue felt a pang of bitterness. Do you care so much about what I say? It was just a jest. It was because Yi Zhenjin had coveted him that she had made that declaration, forbidding any woman from approaching her. But even in her absence today, he rejected even a simple act of support. Su Yingxue stealthily wiped away the tears in her eyes and approached him. She adopted a voice he had never heard before. It was merely a jest. Why take it so seriously? Princess Rong Sheng, who attends to you, is also a woman. Doesn't she touch you? How could she not touch him when she needed to take his pulse, examine him, and administer medicine? Chu Yihan shook his head. She knows how to diagnose the pulse using the thread. Su Yingxue gasped. What about administering medicine? You are her patient, and your status is so noble. Do you intend to allow someone else to apply medicine to you? No need. Pavilion Master is here, Chu Yihan replied. He was still as cold as ever, his demeanor as placid as a deep well. Su Yingxue felt a stifling sensation in her chest. She desperately wanted to blurt out, "Your Highness, can't you be less rigid?" What difference did it make whether the doctor was male or female? And what distinction was there between male and female assistants? "You, leave," Chu Yihan ordered. His gaze fixed on the dining table, his tone unfriendly towards Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue recoiled. She wasn't ready to depart yet. She wanted to observe Chu Yihan a little longer. "I'm here to serve your Highness meal. I'll leave after your Highness finishes dinner," she stated, attempting to approach Chu Yihan to attend to him. However, Chu Yihan's icy glare forced her to retreat. Su Yingxu's hands trembled, and she stepped back 2 paces. She had assumed that with her altered appearance and voice, Chu Yihan wouldn't recognize her, hence her lack of restraint. But Chu Yihan scrutinized her features. The sense of grievance in her eyes stirred something within him. His pallid lips moved. "You are." Why did she resemble Su Yingxue so much when she appeared aggrieved? When he had visited the Silver Moon Pavilion, he had found it reduced to ashes, with only remnants of phoenix satin and traces of her blood remaining. Wu Dao openly told him during the battle that Su Yingxue was dead. He suffered a great shock, which led to his defeat as it is now. But now, the enigmatic woman in the Silver Moon Pavilion was evoking an inexplicable urge within him. He instinctively rose to his feet, feeling a tad dizzy. He steadied himself against the table, but Su Yingxue, seeing him on the verge of fainting, instinctively reached out to support him. "How dare you touch my brother? Have you grown tired of living?" A voice interjected, positioning a hand between Chu Yihan and Su Yingxue, causing her to tremble involuntarily. Recalling Rong Sheng's instructions, Su Yingxue hastily withdrew her hand. "Pavilion Master, spare me." She fled in haste, leaving Chu Yifeng to deal with the aftermath. Chu Yifeng watched Su Yingxu's departure, his lips curling into a cold smile. "Ha!" She ran off quite swiftly. "Who was that serving girl just now? I want to see her." Chu Yihan wanted to chase after her, but Chu Yifeng discreetly held him back. "Just a female slave. My Silver Moon Pavilion has thousands of them. If you want, I'll send you a batch tonight." Chapter 800. Send him a female slave at night. Chu Yihan shot him a sharp glance. "I was asking about the female slave from just now. I was referring to the female slave. The one who attends to you daily is never the same person. There's no need to be fixated. But given your current condition, you might not be able to have a female slave. Let's change your dressing first," Chu Yifeng kindly advised, patting his shoulder. Chu Yihan pushed his hand away in disgust. Although he complied by lying on the bed, allowing Chu Yifeng to change his dressing, he remained unresponsive to Chu Yifeng's attempts at conversation. When Chu Yifeng asked if the wound hurt or if there was any sensation, he dismissed it all as nonsense. Chu Yifeng shook his head. "You're still as uninteresting as ever." Even Rong Sheng, who was usually reserved, could be forced to cry, but Chu Yihan remained impassive as if nothing could penetrate his demeanor. His bad taste was triggered. When he deliberately pressed on Chu Yihan's wound, Chu Yihan's cold and bloodthirsty voice was heard. "I don't mind challenging you. With your current condition, how do you plan to challenge me?" Chu Yifeng sneered mercilessly. Chu Yihan's hand was already clenched around the Qingfeng sword. Chu Yifeng raised his hands in surrender. "Fine, you win. I haven't even considered taking your life yet. Take care of yourself." Ah Hong, listening from outside, clicked his tongue in a sigh. "Those familiar with you might mistake you for brothers, while those unaware would assume you're mortal enemies." Even applying the medicine, he could sense the eager sword energy of Chu Yihan's Qingfeng sword. Once dressed, Chu Yihan's lingering doubts sprouted like a seed. "I want that female slave." After washing his hands, Chu Yifeng wore a teasing smile. "You've just lost your new wife, and you're already in a hurry? Aren't you afraid of your deceased princess consort finding out and feeling heartbroken?" Su Yingxue, eavesdropping outside, wished she could tear Chu Yifeng apart. This despicable person always twisted Chu Yihan's intentions. Chu Yihan was so upright, how could he be in such a rush? Seemingly accustomed to Chu Yifeng's perverse amusement, Chu Yihan regarded him with even more disdain. After the disdain came a simple, direct assertion. I want that female slave. By the time he repeated it for the third time, Chu Yifeng had to confront the sword energy of the Qingfeng sword. Chu Yifeng had intended to say more, but he was momentarily blinded by the brilliance of the Qingfeng sword. He shrugged as if conceding. All right, you can have her. I wouldn't be so stingy with you. Just take care of yourself. Rong Sheng won't be available to save you tonight. Chu Yihan's cold mockery spared no mercy. Chu Yifeng shook his head. As he walked out of Chu Yihan's room, he sighed in resignation. As the pavilion master, I've never been able to handle this younger brother of mine. If he wants a female slave, how could I refuse? With a seductive stride, he returned to his quarters. Su Yingxue threw punches at him from behind. Scoundrel. Lunatic. Deliberately tarnishing Your Highness' name. It was obvious that Your Highness wanted her. Certainly not any other female slave. Humph. Su Yingxue thought, venting her frustration, then remembered Chu Yifeng's words. He had promised Chu Yihan the female slave. Did this mean she would have to? No. Rong Sheng had said that Chu Yihan couldn't see her yet, or else he wouldn't be able to bear it. When Hong found Su Yingxue, he said, the pavilion master ordered that a female slave must be sent to the 9th prince's room tonight. Miss Su, are you going? Or should I send someone else? Of course I can't go. Su Yingxue gritted her teeth in frustration. If she could see Chu Yihan, would she need to dress up like this? But to let someone else go, Su Yingxue's heart ached a little. Chapter 801. Hes jealous of anything. When Su Yingxue asked Rong Sheng about it, Rong Sheng immediately decided and said, send another female slave to the 9th prince's room. At the same time, she gripped Su Yingxue's hand firmly. No matter what, you can't reveal your true identity to him in the next few days. Otherwise, the treatment plan I gave him will be wasted. Su Yingxue's heart sank. She wasn't jealous that another female slave was going to Chu Yihan's room instead of her. It wasn't because of jealousy. She simply couldn't bear the thought of anyone else having this opportunity with Chu Yihan. But her unease was calmed by Rong Sheng's reassuring presence. Rong Sheng agreed and took her to a spot where they could observe Chu Yihan's door. They could catch a glimpse of him when he opened it. Perhaps Chu Yihan wouldn't step out, but at least Su Yingxue could see him for a moment. Gratefully, Su Yingxue looked at Rong Sheng. Thank you, sister. Rong Sheng nodded, feeling somewhat strange. Long Shuli was her senior, and although she had transmigrated into the body of Princess Biling, who was in her 20s, Su Yingxue should technically be her junior. Yet, she kept calling her sister. Su Yingxue also sensed her discomfort and whispered softly in her ear, it's just a form of address, don't worry too much about it. In my heart, you're as formidable as my own mother. Rong Sheng objectively responded, there's still a big gap between me and senior sister. But as for the title, it's really not worth worrying about. Whether she called her aunt or sister, she would protect Su Yingxue like her own daughter. Outside the screen, Chu Yifeng lounged on the soft couch, attended to by a fragrant woman. Despite the luxury, his brow was furrowed in thought. Hong, who had been with him for years, knew that his master's moods were often tied to Rong Sheng. His current discontent likely stemmed from Rong Sheng's closeness to Su Yingxue. Their master got jealous over anything involving Princess Rong Sheng. No matter male or female, none were rejected. But Rong Sheng's naturally aloof demeanor meant she didn't get close to anyone, except for Su Yingxue, who was an exception. So, Chu Yifeng's desperate jealousy made sense to Hong. Master, should we pick a beautiful slave to send to the 9th princes tonight? Hong suggested. A female slave fed Chu Yifeng a peeled grape, urging, Pavilion master, open up. Chu Yifeng ate the grape without even glancing at the female servant. With his hands behind his head, he raised an eyebrow. I'll personally go to pick. When it came to choosing women for his brother, his taste wouldn't falter. In the evening, Rong Sheng brought Su Yingxue to sit opposite Chu Yihan's room, where they could observe the situation at Chu Yihan's door through a small gap. The mere thought of a female slave appearing in Chu Yihan's room made Su Yingxue want to kill Chu Yifeng. It was all his fault. If he chose a pretty girl, she would have a grudge with Chu Yifeng. Chu Yifeng didn't care at all. He even personally escorted the female slavato Chu Yihan's door. When Chu Yihan opened the door and saw Chu Yifeng, he furrowed his brows slightly. His gaze fell on the female slave behind Chu Yifeng, who was dressed in a peach-pink fairy dress and had her face covered with a veil, making it hard to see clearly. Chu Yihan had no choice but to open the door and let them both in. As soon as Chu Yifeng entered, he teased the female slave bee, tugging at a strand of her hair, and chuckled softly. The pavilion master's brother specifically requested you. Go and serve him. Chapter 802. Chu Yihan was so angry that he vomited blood. He deliberately maneuvered behind the female servant and nonchalantly kicked the slightly ajar door open. Outside, as long as Rong Sheng and Su Yingshu's eyes were functional, they could witness the female servant cozying up to Chu Yihan, lifting the medicine bowl and offering it to his lips. Su Yingshu's fists clenched tightly as she uttered each syllable with biting intensity. Chu Yifeng. This scoundrel. It was one thing for him to purposefully send a woman to Chu Yihan, but to allow them to get so intimate. She didn't want Chu Yihan to drink that medicine, but for the sake of his health. If she were there, she would have to convince Chu Yihan to take it. Both Rong Sheng and Su Yingshu observed clearly that Chu Yihan didn't immediately drink the medicine. Lip-reading, Chu Yihan said, "Remove the veil." The female servant appeared troubled. Her gaze shifted to Chu Yifeng. Chu Yihan lifted a lock of hair with his index finger and caressed it gently. He looked sexy and seductive. "They're all women. The ones I choose for you won't be lacking in beauty. Why do you need to pry into her identity? Not only does this medicine heal, but it also offers one a night of forgetfulness, so you don't have to be so reserved." On the other side, Su Yingshu exploded in rage. She kicked the table hard. "Chu Yifeng is insane. He dares to give your highness this medicine. Isn't he going to take his life?" Chu Yihan had yet to recover from his serious injuries, yet he was still asking him to forget about it. "Chu Yifeng, you are a lunatic." Su Yingshu silently cursed him. Rong Sheng pursed his lips and said coldly, "Chu Yifeng has boundaries. While the medicine might induce forgetfulness, it won't kill Ninth Prince." But it had to be acknowledged, this was Chu Yifeng's depravity. Truly despicable. Chu Yihan remained unmoved, his eyes chillingly void. "Remove the veil." His aura exuded an irresistible imperial dominance, causing the female servants to tremble in fear. Even the medicine bowl in her hands began to shake. The tearful look in her eyes bore a striking resemblance to Su Yingshu. Chu Yihan's heart raced uncontrollably. Chu Yifeng rested his chin on one hand and looked like he was waiting for a good show. Chu Yihan took a deep breath and said in a cold voice, "If I have to do it myself, do you know what will happen to you if you're not the person I want?" The female servant trembled as she presented him with the medicine bowl. "Please take the medicine first, Your Highness. Then I will unveil." Chu Yihan's heart raced slightly. Her voice sounded like hers. Even the way she worried about him and fluttered her eyelashes was identical. Chu Yihan gulped down the medicine and reached for her veil with trembling hands. As he lifted it, his distinct eyelashes quivered slightly. "Yingshu, he knew she'd be okay. Your Highness." Su Yingshu's fingernails dug into her palm, drawing blood. Yet she heard a loud thud from the other side, followed by a woman's scream. Chu Yihan's enraged bellow echoed, "She's not Yingshu. I never claimed she was your Su Yingshu." Chu Yifeng's laughter was devoid of emotion. "Chu Yifeng." Chu Yihan's roar was icy. His blood surged uncontrollably, his chest bloating, a surge of blood threatening to burst out and rend him apart. Puff. He spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground. "Your Highness." Su Yingshu couldn't contain herself and rushed out of the room. She lifted Chu Yihan and forced a heart protection pill into his mouth, urging him to swallow. Her tears fell, trembling. "Your Highness, you'll be fine." Chapter 803. Has a devil Su Yingshu would save him. He would be fine. If you don't give him the medicine, he might wake up faster. Chu Yifeng scoffed. "Chu Yifeng, Do you even deserve to be called his brother? You're not his family, you're clearly someone who wants to harm him, Su Yingxue shouted at Chu Yifeng, her red jade soft whip no longer restrained. Rong Sheng approached Chu Yihan. She wrapped a handkerchief around his wrist to take his pulse and check his condition. His expression eased. Don't worry. Hez vomited out the blood clot in his chest. With the medicine, he'll recover faster. Su Yingxue couldn't believe it. When she took Chu Yihan's pulse, she found Rong Sheng's words to be true. She turned to Chu Yifeng, puzzled. Did you purposely treat your highness like this just to make him vomit out the blood clot? Heh. Chu Yifeng sneered before leaving. Su Yingxue helped Chu Yihan back to bed. His pale face tugged at her heartstrings. She lay beside him, reluctant to let go of his hand. Rong Sheng suggested, "You're good at acupuncture. If you give him acupuncture now, he'll recover faster." Su Yingxue nodded and retrieved her set of silver needles from the Medicine King Valley. After applying the needles to Chu Yihan, she heard his breathing become much more even. After they finished, Rong Sheng escorted her back to his room. Along the way, she took the initiative to speak. Chu Yifeng is cruel and vile, but he would never harm his brother. He's his only family in this world. In the modern world, her parents divorced and separated early, so she had no concept of kinship from a young age, hence her indifference. However, she knew that Chu Yifeng was different. He loved his mother and brother dearly. Even though they were miles apart, he never stopped caring for Chu Yihan. Every time Chu Yihan fought, he was there. When Chu Yihan's bloodthirst acted up, it was Chu Yifeng who held the Qingfeng sword and killed his enemies for him. Su Yingxue was flustered and anxious just now. She kept thinking that if she killed Chu Yifeng, Chu Yihan would not blame her, but hearing Rong Sheng's words, her voice was exceptionally cold, like the fairy dew of the Jade Lake. It was so cold that it was unattainable, but it carried a comforting force. Thinking back, Chu Yifeng's method was indeed a little vile. It made her feel uncomfortable and Chu Yihan felt uncomfortable. But in the end, Chu Yihan vomited out the blood clots, and she could even personally administer acupuncture on Chu Yihan to make him recover faster. This outcome was unexpectedly good. "Sister, do you know Chu Yifeng well?" Su Yingxue asked curiously. "Yes." Rong Sheng nodded lightly. She saved Chu Yifeng, taught him, and even Rong Sheng had been entangled with him day and night, so she naturally understood his temperament. "Sister, it must be tough being with Chu Yifeng. He's so vile that he can kill anyone without even being noticed by others," Su Yingxue remarked. She recalled his actions today. He could have planned everything silently, but if he wanted to kill someone, he could do it without a sound. They might even miss him. For example, the female slave that he had brought to Chu Yihan's place just now. From the expression of the female slave, she was infatuated with Chu Yifeng and not Chu Yihan. Rong Sheng halted. There was no emotion on her cold face. "I'm not with him. I'll never be with him in this life." Chapter 804. Come for Su Yingxue. All she wanted was to rid herself of Chu Yifeng as quickly as possible. To leave this devil's den called the Silver Moon Pavilion. She could shine brightly in this world like Long Shuli. Every word Rong Sheng said fell into Chu Yifeng's ears. He seemed to have grown accustomed to Rong Sheng's cold words. Whenever he heard them, he would always sneer in disdain. "Rong Sheng, if you want to leave me in this life, you have to die." When Chu Yihan woke up at night, he felt much more relaxed. His chest was no longer aching, and his blocked meridians were much more relaxed. Other than having severe internal injuries and needing time to recuperate, he knew that his life was no longer in danger. There was steaming medicine on the table. He picked it up and drank it. He opened the door and told the person guarding the door that he wanted to see Chu Yifeng. The person outside the door said, "The pavilion master advises you to rest well." Chu Yihan ignored him and walked straight to Chu Yifeng. "Your Highness, the pavilion master has instructed that you cannot leave the room." These words might be useful to others, but they were useless to Chu Yihan. He went straight to Chu Yifeng's place. He wanted to find out who the person who performed acupuncture on him yesterday was. Pushing open Chu Yifeng's door, a flirtatious voice came from inside. After the man's low growl, there was a dull silence. The aura floating in the air made Chu Yihan frown. He turned around and left. Ah Hong saw Chu Yihan standing at the door with a signature smile on his face. "Ninth Prince, please wait a moment." He brought some people with him and carried hot water and some bathing utensils in. Chu Yihan stood outside the door for a moment before he heard Chu Yifeng's lazy and sexy voice coming from inside. "You're already here. What are you still standing outside for?" Chu Yihan's eyes darkened. After confirming that there was no woman's aura in the room, he stepped in. On the soft couch, Chu Yifeng was casually wearing a coat, revealing his smooth skin and tightly muscled chest. He was half leaning and half lying, looking like a lazy but sexy man. He raised his eyes and looked at Chu Yihan. "Are you all right?" As soon as he finished speaking, a delicate woman fed him something. In front of Chu Yihan, Chu Yifeng didn't feel embarrassed. He ate it and even looked at the female slave with affection. The female slave's heart rippled. Pavilion Master. This call made one's heart melt. Chu Yifeng was just about to flirt with her when Chu Yihan said coldly, "Get lost." Chu Yifeng was naturally not intimidated by his intimidation. Instead, the female slave burst into tears. She looked up at Chu Yihan as if she had seen the Grim Reaper. She quickly covered her face and ran away crying. Chu Yifeng felt a little regretful. He pointed at Chu Yihan and said, "You're going to be alone for the rest of your life. How can there be a woman who likes you?" The corners of Chu Yihan's mouth curled up into a sneer. "I'm already married. You're the lonely one. Oh, you're flaunting yourself just because your wounds have healed. The princess died on the night of the wedding. It would have been better not to marry at all." Chu Yifeng retorted mercilessly. Outside the door, Su Yingxue had just come to look for Rong Sheng. When she heard this, she clenched her fists so hard that they cracked. "Chu Yifeng, just you wait. Sooner or later, I'll chop off your head." He was bullying Chu Yihan again, that heartless brother. Besides, she was alive and well. "She's not dead." Chu Yihan's tone was serious. "She was the one who gave me acupuncture last night." He was very sure that he had not seen Su Yingxue, but he had such a strong feeling in his heart. Chapter 805. You feeling guilty about Chu Yifeng raised his eyebrows. "You must be dreaming. It was Rong Sheng who gave you acupuncture last night." "Rong Sheng?" Chu Yihan looked at Chu Yifeng mockingly. "Since that's the case, I'm still a little uncomfortable. Please ask Princess Rong Sheng to give me another treatment." Chu Yifeng immediately replied, "You wish. You're guilty. It wasn't Rong Sheng last night." Chu Yihan immediately exposed Chu Yifeng's lie. Chu Yifeng didn't reply immediately. Just as his mind was racing, Rong Sheng came out from behind the screen in a cold white dress and said in an indifferent voice, "I can give your highness acupuncture." This was not the first time Chu Yihan had seen Rong Sheng. He originally had no feelings for any woman other than Su Yingxue. However, Rong Sheng had a steady aura that had been accumulating over the years, which did not match her age at all. He nodded. "In that case, I'll have to trouble you, princess." Rong Sheng left with him, completely ignoring Chu Yifeng. As soon as they left, several female slaves came to Chu Yifeng's side. They were all as beautiful as flowers, trying to please him. Chu Yifeng was getting more and more frustrated. He pushed all the women on top of him away, his entire body emitting a violent aura. "Get lost." Seeing this, Ah Hong hurriedly took the female slaves away. "Master, do you want to bring Princess Rong Sheng back? It's also possible to knock out the 9th prince and let Su Yingxue go." Chu Yifeng was about to nod when Su Yingxue appeared at the door. "I'm not going. I've discussed acupuncture with Sister Rong Sheng. It's good to let her perform acupuncture on your highness. I don't need to disturb your highness. If he gets angry, all my previous efforts will be in vain. For the sake of your highness' health, I won't disturb Sister Rong Sheng and your highness. Pavilion Master, your highness is your biological brother. You won't be so ruthless and watch him die, right?" Su Yingxue's pretty face was full of smiles as she finished speaking and then left. She imagined that the expression on Chu Yifeng's face must be very interesting. Ah Hong was in a worse state. The fool was his master. When Chu Ifeng was upset, the people serving him certainly had no good days. Ah Hong had spent the whole day with the crazy Chu Ifeng. One moment, he wanted to watch the trial, the next moment, he wanted the female slaves, and the next moment, he chased everyone out. He ran to Rong Sheng and begged for mercy. "Princess, Your Highness, you're done with the acupuncture. You can go back now." If she stayed any longer with Chu Yihan, Chu Ifeng would go crazy. Rong Sheng was still sitting in front of Chu Yihan, unhurriedly. "It's not done yet. I can't go back." This pavilion master has many famous doctors. It's not that they don't know how to do small things like acupuncture. They can help you. No. No. Chu Yihan and Rong Sheng said in unison. They were expressionless, but their words were consistent. Ah Hong lowered his head. These two masters were not to be trifled with. He should continue to suffer. Once Ah Hong left, Rong Sheng put away the needle in her hand. She was cold and indifferent to everyone. Chu Yihan wouldn't have invited Rong Sheng if he didn't have doubts. "Is the person who gave me the acupuncture okay?" Chu Yihan's eyes softened at the mention of her. "She's fine." Rong Sheng replied lightly. The two of them only said one sentence before Rong Sheng left. She did not return to Chu Ifeng's place but went to the back mountain. Other than purgatory, the other side was a beautiful scenery. The sun slowly set, and the water met the sky in a line. The sparkling waves rippled beautifully on the water. Chapter 806. Crazy monopolization. Rong Sheng had just arrived when a pair of iron-like hands shackled her from behind. They forcefully pulled her into an embrace, pressing her down tightly, as if trying to meld her into their body. Rong Sheng was used to his rough treatment. She wouldn't cry or beg for mercy. It wasn't until Chu Ifeng's hand pressed down on her, leaving her gasping for air, that she struggled to speak. "Chu Ifeng, if you want to kill me, just do it. You don't have to torture me like this." Day by day, he tormented her. Chu Ifeng was slightly stunned, and then a trace of wickedness seeped into his eyes, like an evil emperor. "I won't kill you." His hand coiled around Rong Sheng's neck like a giant python, slowly tightening and forcing her to breathe. "I will only trap you, imprison you, and bind you to my side. Even in death, your ashes will sleep in my arms." Chu Ifeng. There was a hint of madness in Rong Sheng's eyes. She struggled to break free from his grip. "Why? Why are you doing this to me?" They were supposed to be the closest of people. Chu Ifeng was the first person she met when she came to this world. Back then, his innocent gaze had touched the bottom of her heart. But later, he had become a demon, intent on driving her mad. "Wiry." A cold smile appeared on Chu Ifeng's lips. "Senior sister, you are like a fairy who accidentally fell into the mortal world. What I enjoy is turning a fairy into an ordinary person, into a crazy woman. Just like him, driven mad by love. He wanted to possess her completely. As long as she didn't care about him, he would torment her mercilessly. Bit by bit, he crushed her aloof and otherworldly aura." Rong Sheng stopped struggling. She didn't have the strength to fight Chu Ifeng. She was used to being brought back by him, sinking and suffering. She spent her nights in purgatory. At night, the silver moon hung high, illuminating the earth as white as a sheet. Su Yingxue wore a veil and carried a needle kit to Chu Yihan's room. That night, she had been informed by Rong Sheng's men that Chu Yihan wouldn't wake up after taking the medicine. She could pretend to be Rong Sheng and apply acupuncture to Chu Yihan. She quietly entered Chu Yihan's room and approached his bedside. The man's handsome face looked even more striking under the moonlight. Su Yingxue affectionately caressed his face. Her hand felt the warmth. "Your Highness." That day, she had been controlled by Wu Dao, and her blood was drained. She wondered how upset Chu Yihan had been when he found out. He must have been deeply affected, which was why he was like this. Su Yingxue spread out the silver needles and undid Chu Yihan's clothes. The needles fell gently, afraid of disturbing him. She didn't notice that Chu Yihan's fingers moved under the moonlight. He wasn't asleep. When she came in, he was already awake. He just wasn't sure if it was her. When she caressed his face just now, he was still dazed. When the words Your Highness came from her mouth, he no longer doubted. Other than her, no one else in the world could call him that. After Su Yingxue finished the acupuncture, Chu Yihan was still lying there motionless. Su Yingxue leaned over him, her eyes filled with longing. Your Highness, you've always been the most cooperative. She had encountered all kinds of disobedient patients, but Chu Yihan was the only one who obeyed her unconditionally. She stood up to leave, but her hand was suddenly pulled back, and she crashed into Chu Yihan's arms. The man's voice was low and hoarse. How can I not cooperate with the princess consort? He would listen to whatever she said. Your Highness. Su Yingxue jumped up in panic. In her haste, her veil fell off, revealing her face. Chapter 807. Ziwei wants to die with her. She hurriedly covered her face with her sleeve and purposely pinched her voice, screaming, Your Highness, you have the wrong person. I am not your princess consort. I'm leaving now. Chu Yihan slowly rose and pulled her hand down, his gaze obsessed. If you're not, then where is my princess consort? Your Highness. Tears immediately streamed down Su Yingxue's face. She threw herself into Chu Yihan's arms, choking up a bit. Hearing Chu Yihan's heartbeat, she felt that everything she had gone through these days was worth it. At least she could return to his side. Oh no. Your Highness, are your internal injuries okay? Has your bloodthirst acted up? Does your chest hurt? Su Yingxue suddenly realized she shouldn't let him know yet. She was afraid that his blood would surge, causing his bloodthirst to act up again, and harm himself. Chu Yihan gently pinched her face. After expelling the clotted blood, the bloodthirst will not act up again, and with your 2 acupuncture treatments, I am much better. That's good. Su Yingxue breathed a sigh of relief. She suddenly thought, wait, if you're not going to fall ill again, why did Chu Yifeng forbid me from seeing you? That man was annoying. He didn't let you come, but didn't you still come? Chu Yihan's lips curved slightly. That's right, I wouldn't listen to him anyway, but Su Yingxue was puzzled when suddenly, a thought connected everything in her mind. Bringing back the seriously injured Chu Yihan, claiming his bloodthirst would prevent him from getting overly emotional, then deceiving them both by sending a female slave who looked like her to Chu Yihan, making him so angry he spat blood, thus creating an opportunity for her to sneak to Chu Yihan's side. This is all his scheme. She suddenly realized. Chu Yifeng had been playing with her and Chu Yihan. Su Yingxue's face puffed up with anger. Your Highness, your brother is so wicked. Why couldn't he just let me and Rong Sheng treat you properly? Why go to such lengths, making you so angry that you spit blood? Although the result was good, the process was very torturous. And this wasn't something a normal person would come up with. What kind of monster was Chu Yifeng? Chu Yihan didn't seem surprised. You can just ignore him. Chu Yifeng's way of doing things was always different from his. They would never interfere with each other unless it crossed a line. For example, if Chu Yifeng used Su Yingxue to make fun of him, he would ensure he knew the consequences. He pulled Su Yingxue into his arms, and they lay on the bed, sharing their deepest feelings. That day, I was overjoyed to enter the bridal chamber, but you weren't there. Not being able to find you was the most disheartening moment of my life. Chu Yihan gently squeezed Su Yingxue's soft white fingers, a look of desolation in his eyes. Su Yingxue's disappearance was the greatest punishment from the heavens for him. When he went to the Silver Moon Pavilion, it was already engulfed in flames. He rushed in without a second thought, expecting to see Su Yingxue. But he only saw Ziwei, burned by the fire. He clung tightly to Su Yingxue's wedding dress, standing in the sea of fire. Even though the flames had already reached him, burning him into a human torch, he didn't move. He preferred to endure the agony of being burned alive. He said he smelled Su Yingxue's blood and believed she had died there. He stood in the spot with Su Yingxue's blood, determined to accompany her in death. Ziwei lost his soul and he went mad. He crazily sealed off Jiangdu City, searching for any trace of Silver Moon Pavilion's people, but Wu Dao and Hong Lian had disappeared quickly. Chapter 808. Warmth from body to heart, everything was premeditated. Even though he found out that it was Yi Zhenzhen who stabbed Su Yingxue, causing her to be controlled by Wu Dao. In a fit of anger, he killed Yi Zhenzhen and threw Marquis Changshan into prison. But how could this be compared to Su Yingxue? Even if he executed the entire household of Marquis Changshan, he wouldn't be able to get back a single strand of Su Yingxue's hair. Did your highness execute the entire household of Marquis Changshan? Su Yingxue was shocked. Weren't Xu Aoqing and Yi Lingbai both implicated by Yi Zhenzhen? How innocent they were. Chu Yihan shook his head and said in a low voice, "Your grandfather pleaded for mercy, the rest were spared." At that time, if not for Su Qingji stopping him, no one could have saved the household of Marquis Changshan. He remembered that when he was crazed, Su Miaoyan shouted in front of him, "Your Highness, my sister wouldn't want to see you implicate the innocent." The madam and heir of Marquis Changshan were also harmed by Yi Zhenzhen. "They are also my sister's patients. If you kill them, my sister will be sad." At that moment, thinking of your sadness, I couldn't do it. Chu Yihan's face was buried deep in Su Yingxue's embrace. He inhaled the unique fragrance on her body, and his heart finally calmed down a little. Su Yingxue hugged him tightly. Her heart was extremely soft. When Chu Yihan told her everything, she was still worried about one person. "Your Highness, how is Ziwei? How could he stand in the fire like a fool and be burned by the raging flames without knowing to leave? Saint Ruan saved him." Chu Yihan's voice was calm, and Su Yingxue's heart finally settled down. She and Chu Yihan slept in each other's arms. Their bodies leaned against each other, emitting warmth that warmed their hearts. The night was gentle and lingering. The next day, Chu Yifeng was lazily lying on the soft couch with a satisfied look on his face when the door was kicked open. Chu Yifeng thought it was his younger brother coming to settle the score. After all, no one would dare to kick down the door of the Silver Moon Pavilion master other than Chu Yihan. Rong Sheng was not such an uncultured person. However, when he saw Su Yingxue, she swung her whip at him. He immediately sat up and dodged. The pillow and armrest beside him were all shattered. His soft couch, which was worth tens of thousands of taels, was destroyed just like that. Chu Yifeng frowned. "Su Yingxue, are you tired of living?" Boom. What followed was a whistling sword energy. If Chu Yifeng hadn't been so skilled in martial arts and dodged quickly, he would have been smashed into pieces by the Qingfeng sword, just like his soft couch. Forget about Su Yingxue, this sword was swung by his younger brother. Chu Yifeng didn't even have the right to say that he was tired of living. He pushed away the female servant beside him and smacked his lips. "If the two of you want to die together, I don't mind fulfilling your wish." Su Yingxue snorted lightly. "Go ahead and send me to hell, then." If he were willing to send Chu Yihan to the netherworld, then she, Su Yingxue, would be written in reverse. Chu Yifeng chuckled, his eyes cold and disdainful. "Do you think I don't dare? Wu Dao has already reached Bamboo Leaf Pass. As long as I send you there, will you still be alive? At that time, you won't be able to live either." Behind the white screen, Rong Sheng's cold and ethereal figure appeared. Chu Yifeng chuckled. "The few of you are quite neat now. Were they planning to scheme against him together?" Unfortunately, even with his younger brother, Chu Yihan, these people were not his match. Chu Yihan was currently seriously injured. He could still break a soft couch, but they wanted to fight him. He was going to hold a funeral for him tomorrow. Chapter 809, Sweet Snuggle. We are not joking. If Wu Dao doesn't die, none of us, or even the entire world, will have a good life. Rong Sheng's eyes were cold, and her face was solemn. This matters not only concerned her, who was deceived by Wu Dao, but also to Su Yingxue and Chu Yihan, who were poisoned. It also concerned this era and this world. If they all died at the hands of Wu Dao, this world would become his. Given his madness, how many disasters would the people of the world have to endure? "Senior sister, how come I never knew you had such a kind heart and cared about the world?" Chu Yifeng's eyes were filled with mockery. Rong Sheng had always been cold and indifferent. She was unmoved by anyone's death. Back then, when he had begged her to save him like a good-for-nothing, she hadn't even spared him a glance. Now, she was displaying such righteousness. Rong Sheng clenched her fists so tightly that her nails dug into her palms. She said lightly, "Chu Yifeng, help us kill Wu Dao, and I'll let you do whatever you want with me." She was willing to sacrifice herself, to let Chu Yifeng do as he pleased with her. After all, she was poisoned by him and couldn't leave him for even a day. Her life no longer mattered. Chu Yifeng lifted a lock of hair by his ear and sneered. "Aren't you already at my disposal? What else could she do?" Rong Sheng bit her lip, a touch of shame appearing on her face. Her dignity was once again trampled by him. "Chu Yifeng, when everything falls apart, no one is safe. Do you think that after Wu Dao takes over the world, he won't come after you?" Su Yingxue asked and frowned. Under Rong Sheng's protection, Chu Yifeng had remained undiscovered by Wu Dao and had grown very powerful. But Wu Dao would eventually find out. At that time, wouldn't he kill Chu Yifeng? He would. Chu Yifeng would not escape the same fate. Chu Yifeng leaned against the railing and looked down at the living beings below the tower with contempt. "Even if I have to die, I can fight him and even die with him. What does my life and death have to do with you?" His words were full of disdain. He didn't want to join them to deal with Wu Dao. "But you still have Sister Rong Sheng. Does she have to die with you at Wu Dao's hands?" Su Yingxue left the last part of the sentence unspoken. How could he be so selfish? Before she could finish her sentence, Chu Yihan stopped her. Unlike Rong Sheng and Su Yingxue, Chu Yihan didn't strongly want Chu Yifeng to join them and help them. He glanced at Chu Yifeng indifferently. "We're leaving now." After saying that, he took Su Yingxue downstairs. They walked out of the Silver Moon Pavilion unimpeded. On the street, Su Yingxue looked back and saw Chu Yifeng still leaning lazily on the railing. She held Chu Yihan's hand and asked curiously, "Your Highness, are we leaving just like that? Was that your farewell to Chu Yifeng?" Chu Yihan nodded. "Yes. It's that simple. Your Highness, the way you two brothers interact is too special." It was truly surprising. Chu Yihan lifted her chin, disregarding Chu Yifeng, and with a hint of unexplainable treachery, he asked, "What did you call me just now?" "Your Highness." Su Yingxue blurted out. After she finished speaking, she realized something was wrong. Her eyes brightened, and with a clear smile, she called out, "Hubby." Chu Yihan lowered his head and kissed her lips. "Princess Consort, come back with me." "All right, with my hubby here, I'm not afraid of anything." Chapter 8:10. No one can compare to Rong Sheng. The sight of the two cuddling figures appeared murky and obscure to Chu Yifeng's eyes. However, in just a short while, Alt Hong swiftly brought over an identical soft couch and placed it in the same spot. He also summoned several young and attractive female slaves to attend to Chu Yifeng. Beautiful women around Chu Yifeng were nothing new to Rong Sheng. As one alluring female slave attempted to feed Chu Yifeng a cup of wine, Rong Sheng abruptly seized the glass, fixing a cold stare at the female slave. "Leave." Tears welled up on the female slave's delicate face. She promptly leaned into Chu Yifeng's embrace, coquettishly pleading, "Pavilion Master, she's cruel to me. I'm so scared. Please don't leave me." The female slaves groomed for Chu Yifeng were all of exceptional beauty, and many were daughters of noble families. They spared no effort to become female slaves in the Silver Moon Pavilion just to be near Chu Yifeng. Among them, some were alluring and proud. Those who could face Rong Sheng without fear or retreat were rare. Chu Yifeng raised an eyebrow, a seductive aura emanating from his features. "Senior sister, what's the meaning of this? Do you wish to serve together?" Rong Sheng remained aloof and proud, never deigning to vie with others. And particularly not for him, whom she had always disregarded. However, her response this time caught Chu Yifeng off guard. "Chu Yifeng, I will never share a man with anyone." A flicker of surprise crossed Chu Yifeng's eyes, his heart throbbing with turmoil. Yet outwardly, he remained calm. He placated the female slave with a smile, massaging her shoulder. "You may leave for now. I will visit your room later." The female slave's eyes lit up, boldly wrapped her arms around Chu Yifeng's neck for a kiss. Then, with a timid tone, she said, "I'll be waiting for you, Pavilion Master. You must come." "Of course." Chu Yifeng readily agreed, even pinching her smooth cheek. The other female slaves looked on with envy and jealousy at the one who had successfully enticed Chu Yifeng. They all thought they must emulate her to win Chu Yifeng's favor. Only then could they become his woman. Little did they know, Rong Sheng had uttered, "I don't like that woman." Sighing, Chu Yifeng ordered, "Very well then. Ah Hong, dispose of her." Ah Hong nodded. "Yes, master." As he left, he sighed with regret. The female slave from earlier thought she had won over Rong Sheng, and she strutted arrogantly in front of the other female slaves, saying, "Don't be afraid of the woman next to the pavilion master. No matter how pretty she is, she's merely regarded as a pin-up. The pavilion master prefers someone like me, full of charm. If you want to win him over, learn from me, not that lifeless princess." Walking away, her arms still swaying dramatically, she seemed particularly flamboyant. Ah Hong clicked his tongue. She brought this upon herself. She won't survive. Thinking she could win Chu Yifeng's favor, she would never realize that no woman in this life could win him over. He was incapable of any feelings. Chu Yifeng's heart had long been entwined with Rong Sheng's, impossible to extract. How could others even dream of it? Inside the room, Rong Sheng still held the wine glass she had snatched from the female slave. Approaching Chu Yifeng, she lifted his face and offered him the glass. Chu Yifeng grasped her hand and sniffed the wine. What poison did senior sister put in the wine? Given her vast knowledge of ancient and modern medicine, poisoning him with a glass of wine would be all too easy. Rong Sheng frowned at his words before finishing the wine in the glass. She is a heartless person. She drank too quickly, choking in her throat, and suddenly she began to cough violently. Chu Yifeng scooped her into his arms, gently patting her back to help her catch her breath. As he patted, Rong Sheng said, "It wasn't poisoned. Just now, she simply hadn't wanted him to drink the wine that the female servant had offered." Chu Yifeng found it amusing. "I can tell. Even if there were poison, you would still feed it to me rather than drink it yourself." Though Rong Sheng was cool and detached, she always valued her life greatly. No matter how he tormented her, she never considered ending her own life. Once, she had told him, "Chu Yifeng, you only live once, and life is not to be wasted or squandered. Since you've come into this world, even if it means suffering broken bones and leading an unremarkable existence, you must still live on properly." She spoke with such righteous conviction that he, a man who had strayed onto a wicked path, found himself without words to argue against her. That's why he always wanted to drag her down with him, to fall from grace together. However, no matter how hard he pulled, Rong Sheng remained a high and lofty fairy. She never fell to the mortal world, never tainted by a breath of worldly vulgarity. "I would never poison you." Rong Sheng's speech was somewhat halting, as if she had never said such things before. Therefore, her expression while speaking was stiff and unfamiliar. "Really?" Chu Yifeng was quite surprised, his laughter tinged with disdain and contempt. He knew that Rong Sheng was trying to lull him into complacency before killing him. After all, his body carried numerous marks from Rong Sheng's previous attempts. A few years ago, had he not awoken in time, Rong Sheng's golden hairpin would have pierced straight through his heart. "Yes, Chu Yifeng, do not underestimate my feelings for you." Rong Sheng looked intently at Chu Yifeng. As a heartless person, in order to let her feelings surface, she had to tear open the seal over her heart. Now, she was doing it herself. Chu Yifeng was momentarily stunned, his mind flashing back to what he had just seen, the way Chu Yihan had been protecting Su Yingxue, and how she tenderly called him, hubby. It was disgustingly sweet. "Rong Sheng, you are a heartless person. How could you have any feelings for me?" Chu Yifeng's lips curled into a mocking arc. Rong Sheng took his hand and placed it over her heart. "I do." Below Chu Yifeng's palm, the sound of a heart beating. Thump thump, thump thump, thump thump thump. Su Yingxue and Chu Yihan awoke once more, and upon opening their eyes, they were again in the Silver Moon Pavilion. Su Yingxue, looping her arm through Chu Yihan's, grumbled, "Hubby, your brother is seriously ill." We've only been gone half a day, and has resorted to such tactics. Chu Yifeng, as the Silver Moon Pavilion Master, was the king of Yungui City. To bring them back, even Su Yingxue and Chu Yihan were caught off guard without a whisper of warning. This was a dining hall for use, grand enough to rival the banquet hall of the imperial palace, with treasures on display that even the palace might not possess. Su Yingxue thought to herself, as pavilion master, Chu Yifeng truly lived more freely than as a prince. Servants, serve the dishes. Chu Yifeng entered from outside, leading Rong Sheng by the hand, with a smile on his face. Seeing his smile, Su Yingxue felt somewhat creeped out. Chu Yifeng, what madness has possessed you this time? What was his purpose in bringing them back here only to offer them a meal? Nothing much, just a grand scheme to deal with Wu Dao. We should at least eat our fill first, right? You and Yihan need to take care of yourselves properly, and as your brother, one naturally can't be stingy. Chu Yifeng's mouth curled upwards, his mood inexplicably buoyant. His reference to Yihan successfully disgusted Chu Yihan, prompting him to confront Chu Yifeng. Are you conspiring with Wu Dao to trap us here to death? Thwarting Wu Dao's conspiracy. If I wanted to trap you to death, would you still be alive right now? Chu Yifeng countered Chu Yihan. Chu Yihan snorted coldly. Su Yingxue tugged at Rong Sheng's sleeve. Sister Rong Sheng, did you poison him? Otherwise, how could Chu Yifeng's attitude have made such a sudden 360-degree turn? Rong Sheng shook her head. He will help us kill Wu Dao. If no poison was involved, then how did Chu Yifeng's madness get cured? Su Yingxue looked at Chu Yihan, who appeared unconcerned and even pushed a bowl of ginseng bird's nest in front of her, telling her to replenish her strength properly. Seeing that Chu Yihan had accepted the situation, Su Yingxue didn't make a fuss and started eating. However, she noticed some changes seemed to have occurred between Rong Sheng and Chu Yifeng. Chu Yifeng was more enthusiastic towards Rong Sheng, constantly serving her food until she said she couldn't eat anymore, and even then, Chu Yifeng was still thinking about what dessert to prepare for her after dinner. As Chu Yifeng became happier, he ate more, and Rong Sheng occasionally served him a few morsels of food, then Chu Yifeng would behave like someone stricken with madness. After they finished eating, the night was dark and windy. When everyone had settled down to rest, Chu Yifeng led them to the underground information chamber. This was an underground castle with rigorously designed mechanisms on all sides. Once the stone wall dropped, it became cut off from the outside world. Apart from Chu Yifeng, who could operate the mechanisms, no one else could leave. Chu Yifeng allowed them to see it openly because each mechanism could only be activated with his blood. Even if Su Yingxue saw it, without his blood, she couldn't move any mechanism. Once inside the stone chamber, Su Yingxue gasped, "Hubby, those who are ruthless to others are even more ruthless to themselves." To open the secret chamber just once required blood, which ensured high secrecy, but the cost to oneself was considerable. If one had to open it several times a day, one would wonder if Chu Yifeng's blood would be enough. Chu Yifeng, as if having eyes on the back of his head, turned around and looked at Su Yingxue coolly. If you hadn't married Chu Yihan, your tongue would now be for sale on the black market. His Silver Moon Pavilion black market sold everything, not just gold, silver, and jewels which were common, but also human lives, and even positions of officials, empresses, and imperial consorts were available for purchase. Su Yingxue puffed up her cheeks. Chu Yihan rubbed her head. "Don't be afraid, if he says it again, your highness will cut out his tongue." Su Yingxue's smile blossomed beautifully. "Hubby is the best." The idea of a husband stabbing his brother for his wife's sake shouldn't be too adorable. After a moment of levity, the group began to focus on their joint strategy. Chu Yifeng was in control of Wu Dao's whereabouts. Wu Dao has reached the vicinity of Yungui City, but he has not entered the city and has not found me yet. One speculate that there are still people he is waiting for. Who is he waiting for? Su Yingxue asked. Wu Dao had countless inscrutable schemes. Only Rong Sheng, who had crossed through time, could understand and grasp them clearly. Rong Sheng told them, he is waiting for the pillar of the Great Wei dynasty, the royal family member. Chu Yihan said gravely, Qin Muyan, half of the Great Wei dynasty's military power, is in his hands. Once Qin Muyan dies, Great Wei will be thrown into chaos. Just like him of the Great Cheng dynasty, Han Yuan of Qi state, and Princess Biling Rongsheng. Each one was a power and military might consolidator among the four nations. All were targets Wu Dao intended to deal with. That is to say, once Qin Muyan arrives, Wu Dao will make his move against you. Su Yingxue clenched her fist tightly. Wu Dao had used her death to strike at Chu Yihan, waging war against the Great Cheng dynasty. Han Yuan, being his student, would undoubtedly submit to him. That left Chu Yihan, Qin Muyan, and Rongsheng. By killing Chu Yihan and Qin Muyan, and making Han Yuan and Rongsheng conquer Great Qi and Biling City for him, he could then let Chu Yifeng unify the Great Wei and Great Cheng dynasties. The four nations would all be under his control. Ghost Market. Such a plan was almost flawless. But everything had changed because of Su Yingxue. Tomorrow, the ninth prince must charge onto the battlefield again with severe wounds, then suffer defeat, allowing Wu Dao's plan to succeed by half. Chu Yifeng raised an eyebrow, his languid eyes carrying a hint of wicked charm. Chu Yihan, with his arm around Su Yingxue's waist, said, "You stay in the Silver Moon Pavilion first. Once we are all gathered in Yungui City, we can give Wu Dao a heavy blow." Su Yingxue nodded in agreement. "Good, when Wu Dao arrives in Yungui City, I want to take his life myself to avenge my mother." A touch of bloodthirsty ferocity flashed in her eyes. But to guard against Wu Dao, Chu Yifeng had hidden her underground, insisting she not show herself unnecessarily. Before he left, Su Yingxue called out to Chu Yifeng, "Hey, can you lend me Sister Rongsheng for a while?" Chu Yifeng refused without a second thought. No. Rongsheng belonged to him, and he would not lend her to anyone. "Just for 2 hours, I have some things I want to ask Sister Rongsheng." Su Yingxue looked dissatisfiedly at Chu Yifeng. Was this man's possessiveness too terrifying? No, Chu Yifeng was simply unreasonable. No sooner had Chu Yihan left than he became unkind to Su Yingxue. Although he had never been very polite to Su Yingxue, she felt this guy was now even more hostile towards her. Su Yingxue looked at Rongsheng with a plea in her eyes. Rongsheng nodded at her subtly, and with a resigned smile, Su Yingxue headed to her dwelling in the underground. She had never imagined that the Silver Moon Pavilion's underground black market would be so bustling, its splendor in no way inferior to that above ground. Ah Hong, seeing her curiosity, asked, "Miss Su, would you like me to show you around?" Su Yingxue nodded, if possible. Ah Hong said in a flat tone, "Of course it's possible. You are staying in the ghost market for your safety. Master has not restricted your freedom. But the underground ghost market is different from above ground. Please be careful. It would be unfortunate if you were not careful and became an item for trade." While Ah Hong explained, Su Yingxue listened carefully. The underground black market was also known by a special name, the ghost market. Su Yingxue, having never been to Yungui City at the border of the four nations before, was unaware of the ghost market's existence, finding only brief mentions of it in her mother's notes. Her mother's assessment of this place was that it was not fit for good people, where villains ran rampant, yet it was also a place where human nature was most truly revealed. In her view, the place received mixed praise and wasn't entirely a den of iniquity. After all, not everyone living above ground was good. Ah Hong led her through the market. The shops and commerce of the marketplace were no different from above ground, but upon closer inspection, one might see half a human leg hanging in a restaurant or a person being hammered to death with a large stone breaking their chest on the street, with many onlookers placing bets and cheering. There were also beggars asking for money, apparently kind-hearted people giving them coins laced with a sleeping draught, only to drag them away once they passed out. Su Yingxue pointed to a beggar being dragged away and asked Ah Hong, "He has nothing on him, no possessions at all. Why would that person drug him and take him away?" Ah Hong glanced at the scene, "To sell him at the slave market. In the ghost market, slaves are bought and sold completely, inside and out, belonging to their masters. The master may demand their life, and they cannot die, or their heart, and they cannot give their liver. That beggar must have just escaped from somewhere, thinking he had freed himself from fate, but in reality, once he wakes up, he will be a branded slave. Accompanying little ginseng, Su Yingxue smacked her lips. This encounter is somewhat pitiable, but had he not attempted to steal the money pouch because he saw that the person had wealth, he would not have met this catastrophe. There was no compassion for the suffering of humanity on her face. Alt Hong highly appreciated this, even adoring it more. People who first enter the ghost market are all shocked. This place is another world entirely. Those wearing masks are the righteous on the surface, yet once here, they become beings of uncertain nature. Miss Su's observation is keen, and this calm composure is indeed rare. If it had been earlier, Su Yingxue would certainly have wanted to stand up for justice and smash this so-called ghost market. However, now she did not think that way. Every place exists for a reason, inevitably with its own purpose. Even if this is the underworld market, I surmise it has its own set of laws. Ah Hong smiled slightly. Indeed, the law of the ghost market is to survive based on one's own abilities. No one will save you, nor will anyone pity you. Su Yingxue uttered an "oh" and was not surprised. She could imagine that those hiding here were all extremely vicious people. But to be able to live here and keep surviving was not something everyone could achieve. After wandering around for half an hour and having strolled down one street, when Ah Hong asked her if she wanted to continue to the next one, she said there was no need, she wanted to go back and rest. On her way back, she passed by a medical clinic, complete with a medicine hall and doctors, which suddenly made her miss her own clinic. Although trapped here, the idea of expanding Tongchang Medical Center all over the world still persisted in her heart. Having left the great Cheng dynasty for so long, I wonder how Xiao Yu's preparations are coming along. Su Yingxue muttered to herself that, should things go well, after killing Wu Dao, she was going to return and continue the unfinished business. She lived in the most prominent Juijing building in the ghost market, a place where the people of the market dared not approach. Ah Hong had told her when he brought her here that only the great slave master of the market, like her, was qualified to live here. However, Juijing building was divided into east and west sides. She lived on the east side, and the slave master lived on the west, so they would not disturb each other. Su Yingxue nodded and told Ah Hong that he could leave. She wanted to rest. After Alt Hong left, Su Yingxue entered Medicine King Valley. While brewing and adjusting her own medicine, she also needed to accompany little ginseng, who had exhausted its whiskers. Little ginseng looked much older, and its ginseng roots had gained a couple more wrinkles. Upon seeing Su Yingxue, it let out a child's whiny voice. Faithless wretch. To save you, I've again expended 1,000 years of spiritual power, and only now do you think to visit me. Heartless and ungrateful. Up to no good. Su Yingxue listened quietly as it ranted, gently stroking its spiritual body with her hand. All right, it's my fault, my bad. You need to recover quickly, okay? Like a deflated child, little ginseng bombarded Su Yingxue with a tirade and, when it became too tired to continue, stopped, its adorable voice taking on a slightly husky tone. Hey, why are you being so obedient? Usually, she would banter back, but now that she was the only target of its scolding, it made her, oh no, made the ginseng find it boring. Su Yingxue lifted its spiritual body, revealing an intriguing smile. That's because you haven't recovered yet. Once you're better, I'll continue to pull your whiskers, okay? Damn. You're so brutal. You'll never get married like this. Seizing Wu Dao's weakness, little ginseng trembled with fear. Su Yingxue tilted her head and smiled. One apologize, but I'm already the 9th princess consort. My lifetime commitment has been settled. You're so ruthless. You won't be able to have children in the future. My medical skills are so good, it's impossible for me not to have children. You're so ruthless, in the future. Little ginseng deflated, realizing it had nothing left to threaten Su Yingxue with. Is there any spirit ginseng more miserable than it? To have fallen this low, it truly had no equal. Don't worry, from now on, I won't let anything unexpected happen to myself. A look of determination flashed in Su Yingxue's eyes, a mark of respect for herself. She couldn't let herself down, couldn't disappoint her mother, and most certainly couldn't fail all those in this world who cherished and loved her. Su Yingxue did not let little ginseng get the better of her in their verbal exchange, but she still kept it company for a long time, as if accompanying a petulant child. That was until she heard a noise outside the door. She left Medicine King Valley to open the door, and Rong Sheng appeared at the entrance. Rong Sheng had bathed before coming, and she carried a faint scent on her. If it were anyone else, they would have thought it was the fragrance of flowers, obtainable through a petal bath. But Su Yingxue could detect that it was the scent of poison. Rong Sheng had been trapped in Chu Yifeng's chambers all year round, and the fragrance burnt there called must enjoy to the fullest, was a type of poison. Once inside the body, one must continuously inhale it, otherwise, after leaving it for more than 2 hours, the poison would act up in the system and failing to inhale it for an extended period would turn one into black bones. This was the poison Chu Yifeng had administered to Rong Sheng. Su Yingxue furrowed her brow and asked Rong Sheng, "Sister Rong Sheng, your medical skills are on par with my mother's, haven't you thought about creating an antidote for yourself?" Rong Sheng shook her head. She was a tranquil fairy, but every motion conveyed a deeper understanding to others. Su Yingxue realized, "That's true, although your medical expertise is high, you can't stay away from Chu Yifeng for too long. He's watching you, and it would be inconvenient for you to create an antidote." Compared to Rong Sheng, she had it much easier. "Sister Rong Sheng, let me prepare an antidote for you," Su Yingxue volunteered eagerly. Rong Sheng was her mother's junior sister and had been so kind to her, she naturally wanted to rescue her. Rong Sheng still shook her head, "There's no need." "Why?" This caught Su Yingxue by surprise, for she could see that from yesterday to now, Rong Sheng's time with Chu Yifeng had not been genuinely happy. Despite her good cover, there was an element of reluctance. Rong Sheng spoke frankly, "The catalyst for the antidote, the rootless flower, has been destroyed by Chu Yifeng, and he has razed to the ground every place where it could grow. There's no cure for this poison." Su Yingxue swallowed hard. This was beyond her wildest expectations. Chu Yifeng truly is a madman. He loved Rong Sheng, yet wanted her to die rather than leave his side, using such extreme measures. "The urgent matter at hand is not my poison. You asked me to come, you must have something else you want to inquire about." Rong Sheng's cool gaze shifted to Su Yingxue. It seemed calm and undisturbed, yet her eyes contained a hint of concern. Su Yingxue nodded, "Indeed, one have something I wish to consult you about, concerning Wu Dao's porphyria and also my mother and his story." "One want to know more details." Rong Sheng had a rough idea and shared everything she knew. She also handed Su Yingxue a book. "This is what I've written about the causes of porphyria and the methods your sister used. It contains modern medical knowledge as well as my own summaries. You may wish to peruse it when you have time." Shi Lu the slave master, Mu Fei. She remembered that Long Shuli once said she wanted to leave behind all she had learned throughout her life, though in this era that lacked everything, this thought was fantastical. But she was always stubborn, never admitting defeat, and surely she must have done this, so Su Yingxue must have received what she left behind. She was merely gilding the lily. Su Yingxue was very happy. "Thank you, Sister Rong Sheng, for willing to share your experience with me. I will study it diligently." Rong Sheng responded with a cold and indifferent hum. When she got up to see Rong Sheng out, Su Yingxue noticed a red mark at the back of Rong Sheng's neck, about the size of a palm, with new and old scars overlaid. She suddenly realized why Rong Sheng had taken a bath when she arrived. It was probably after a fierce ordeal. Seeing the cold and ethereal Rong Sheng, Su Yingxue felt a great pity in her heart, and she disliked the madman Chu Yifeng even more. Rong Sheng, who was like a fairy, should have lived a free life like the fairies. Yet she was confined by Chu Yifeng. Su Yingxue stood on the upstairs balcony, lost in thought, unaware that someone opposite was watching her. As she looked up, she collided with a pair of deep eyes. The man's fair skin glowed with a fine luster under the sun, his features so beautifully transcending gender that the casual wave of his paper fan was seductive. Su Yingxue's eyes twitched, feeling very strange. She had seen many men, but she had never seen one with a face that so appealed to women. The angles of his eyes and eyebrows, even the curve of his smile, all were precisely at the angle women adored. She couldn't help but take an extra few glances before blurting out, "Who might you be, sir?" The man answered directly, "Shi Lu, Mu Fei." In just 4 words, yet his voice was as pleasant as the music of the heavens. making one feel as if walking on clouds with its softness. Such a beautiful and gentle man. Su Yingxue thought of what Ahong had said that Juijing Buildings Shilu was occupied by the largest slave master of the ghost market. Her eyes widened with a hint of shock. Mu Fei, this incredibly beautiful man, was the largest slave master of the ghost market. The slave master was a symbol of power and wealth in the ghost market. He was. Mu Fei observed her surprise in full but showed no intention of crossing the boundary toward her. The two of them looked at each other from across the empty building, with Mu Fei chuckling, "Miss must be new to the ghost market. The shock on your face and your unfamiliarity with me are things I haven't seen in a long time." TSK. That tone, it must be of a slave master for sure. Su Yingxue nodded and didn't intend to have any interaction with this Mu Fei. After all, she wasn't going to stay in the ghost market for long, just temporarily. However, a maidservant who suddenly appeared next to Mu Fei caught her attention. She was 13 or 14, skinny, and couldn't fill out the blue robe she wore. Even holding only a teacup in her hand, it seemed as if she was bearing something immensely heavy. Jing tried to keep the tray stable, using the gentle tone Mu Fei liked, and said softly, "Young master, please have some tea." Her obedient gentleness pleased Mu Fei greatly. He took a sip of the tea Jing had brewed. It was rich and fragrant, a flavor he liked very much. She had practiced many times and finally got it right. Mu Fei looked at her appreciatively, touched her head, and said, "Clever young girl, there's no need to stand watch tonight, go back to your room and sleep." "Really?" Jing looked like she had received the best thing in the world, her bright eyes sparkling like stars. Rescuing Jing, she was permitted to stand up, and at the same time, she also saw Su Yingxue across from her. Her mouth fell open. "Sister Yingxue." Su Yingxue gave her a slight smile but did not make any additional gestures before turning back to her own place. Mu Fei asked her with a smile, "Do you know that, miss?" Jing instinctively wanted to shake her head. "No, think carefully before you answer." The smile vanished from Mu Fei's face, and for a moment, his eyes turned cold and bloodthirsty. Jing trembled slightly, recalling the female slaves sold to Mu Fei along with her. 8 out of 10 had died, and only she lived on, still resembling a person. She immediately corrected herself. "Her name is Su Yingxue. When we were thrown into the trial on the hill behind the land, she led us and we all walked out alive." The trial on the hill behind the land, purgatory where out of 99 female slaves only one could survive. "How many of you lived through it?" Mu Fei raised an eyebrow, curious. Jing told the truth, 99 of us, we all survived. The pavilion master rewarded all of us with money and released us. Regrettably, they were too ostracized on the surface. If it wasn't the government attempting to capture them, then it was their vicious families, dragging them to be drowned in the pond. Her parents had passed away long ago, and she could only go with a few sisters to the ghost market to make a living. But surviving in the ghost market was no easier than on the surface. All of them were sold to the slave market. Those with good luck were bought by masters, those with bad luck were dismembered right there at the marketplace. Originally, she and 10 other sisters were chosen by Mu Fei, but they all ended up tortured to death for not serving Mu Fei well. One who remained alive was turned into a human pig, her limbs chopped off and immersed in a jar, which Jing fed daily. Although she had not died, her existence was worse than death. Upon hearing this, Mu Fei's lips curled into an extremely bewitching smile, terrifyingly beautiful. Jing dared not look up, only listening as Mu Fei ordered, "Tell me everything that happened between you all." Jing obediently complied, "Yes, master." That night, Su Yingxue could not sleep soundly. She clearly saw Jing and the other female slaves take their money and leave the Silver Moon Pavilion. They should have gone to live their own lives. So why had Jing ended up in the ghost market, again becoming a slave? This question prompted her to step out of the east building and head towards the west building. She had asked Ahong before, about the clear division between the east and west buildings, and what would happen if she stepped into the west building. Ahong had told her, "It's the law of the ghost market. If you can come and go freely, then it's your skill, and the people of the west building can't do anything to you." In other words, if she found herself trapped in the west building, Chu Feng would not care about her survival, whether she could live on depended on her alone. Su Yingxue took the red jade soft whip and went to the west building. Having spent a long time with Zi Wei, she had learned quite well the art of concealment and secrecy. She found Jing without much difficulty. But she was in a rather hidden room, the corner dark and the air permeated with a nauseating stench of decay. Jing was feeding the person in the jar and did not notice when the door had opened. Su Yingxue quietly observed from the side, and upon seeing what Jing was doing and the human pig in front of her, frowned deeply. Jing, why has it come to this? Sister Yingxue. Initially startled, Jing quickly controlled the volume of her voice to prevent Su Yingxue from being discovered. Seeing her once more and what she whispered in the ear of the disfigured man elicited some incoherent utterances from him, which were noisy enough to be deemed normal by the guards outside, who decided not to come in and check. Jing, seeing that the patrol outside had moved on, approached Su Yingxue with wide eyes. Sister Yingxue, how did you get here? Weren't you discovered by anyone? The master's Shi Lu was tightly secured like a web, where hundreds of slaves lived on the bottom floor. They all wanted to escape, some with considerable martial arts skills, yet none had ever succeeded. That Su Yingxue had managed to enter was truly astonishing. Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow. Though the defenses are tight, it's not impenetrable. If you don't want to stay here, then come with me to Shi Lu, and I'll find a way to send you to the surface to start a new life. Su Yingxue thought Jing was forced, even terrorized to the point of losing her courage, to be in such a state. However, to Su Yingxue's surprise, Jing shook her head and trembled at the mention of returning to the surface. Sister Yingxue, I won't go back. I will stay by Master's side. He treats me very well. Jing seemed to ponder for a moment before nodding firmly at Su Yingxue. Very well. Su Yingxue pointed at the urn. Not turning you into this is considered good. Upon first laying eyes on Mu Fei, she knew he was not normal. A normal man wouldn't possess such an unnaturally handsome appearance. His face was abnormal, his gaze was abnormal, and even every move he made exuded a sinister aura. No matter how she thought about it, she could not see how he could be someone that treated Jing well. Jing bit her lip firmly. Sister Yingxue, the master is truly good to me. Of all the sisters who came with me, I'm the only one alive, but the master has never troubled me. My fear of him today is because he always made me stay up all night for him. But today, after he met you, he rewarded me with a night off. Compared to being scorned on the surface, or the ever-present danger of losing my life, I'd rather stay here with my master. Su Yingxue crossed her arms, unable to change Jing's mind and thus did not force her. Yet, being with this disfigured man felt awkward to her. After asking Jing about the events that befell her, Su Yingxue's understanding deepened to another level. It turns out that in this world, apart from the madman Chu Feng, there were many more lunatics. Mu Fei was one of them. Having returned to the Eastern Tower, Su Yingxue was visited by Mu Fei the next day. When Hong came to call her, he said, Mu Fei has offered 100 female slaves in exchange for a meeting with you. Su Yingxue curled her lips and scoffed coldly, so I'm worth that much? A whole 100 female slaves. Hong overlooked the sarcasm in her eyes and said with a composed smile, our master is the overseer of the ghost market, and people there can do business with him. The master has agreed to this deal, so please, Miss Su, step this way. Ha. Su Yingxue chuckled coolly. Isn't this just Chu Feng trying to sell me off while my husband isn't around? Hong laughed lightly. Our master certainly cannot sell Miss Su. It's just a meeting, and it will not cause Miss Su any harm. Enough already. Su Yingxue rolled her eyes, certain that if Chu Feng could sell her to Mu Fei, he wouldn't hesitate for a second. That kind of man who could be jealous over a woman, what wouldn't he do? But Su Yingxue also felt curious about Mu Fei and, keeping Jing in mind, she decided to go. Mu Fei was waiting for her on the 5th floor of Shi Lu. There were attendants at the entrance, and the reception hall was splendid and magnificent. With the windows open, one could overlook the entire view of the ghost market. For her, Mu Fei had indeed made an effort to show hospitality. Is Su Yingxue from the Great Wei dynasty? Seeing Mu Fei again, Su Yingxue didn't show a pleasant face. After all, she didn't like to deal with abnormal people. But the look Mu Fei gave her was especially strange. At first, he was very excited, but as he calmed down, it turned into a still pool of dead water. It seemed waveless, but Su Yingxue always felt that beneath his eyes lurked turbulent waves. Yet she was sure she didn't know Mu Fei, and there was absolutely no connection between them. However, on her way there, she heard a Hong say that the owner of Shi Lu used to be a woman, a slave master with the highest status in the ghost market, who had lived in Shi Lu for 20 years, and her position had never been challenged by anyone. She had also kept quite a few male pets. Mu Fei was one of her male pets. However, Mu Fei was ruthless. He killed Hua Yi and took her place to become the largest slave master in the ghost market. This was the most sensational event in the ghost market in the past 2 years. But those living in the ghost market were no ordinary people, so this bit of gossip entertained the masses for a while and was soon forgotten. Miss Su, are you from the Great Wei dynasty? Mu Fei waved his fan, and Ah Jing, who was serving at the side, passed a cup of tea to Su Yingxue. Her eyes were bright, seemingly not at all in the ghost market but acting as a maid in an ordinary family, exhibiting even more color than before. With her lips pursed, Su Yingxue took the teacup but did not drink, replying to Mu Fei, I come from the Great Cheng dynasty. My identity, you probably bought with a female slave. You paid such a big price to see me. Are you plotting against the Great Wei dynasty, or against me? After 2 days in the ghost market, Su Yingxue had already adapted well. Although she didn't think it was a good habit, she took it as a sign of her strong adaptability. Mu Fei's mouth curled up, his red lips revealing an enchanting charm, worthy of being the 9th princess consort, with exceptional courage and insight. I won't hide it from you, Miss Su. Before coming to the ghost market, I was also from the Great Wei dynasty. The first time I saw you, I felt you looked very familiar, as if we had met before. Sorry, I've never been to the Great Wei. You must be mistaken, Su Yingxue said indifferently, but suspicion arose in her heart. Indeed, she had never been to the Great Wei, but her mother had intricate connections to it. Before she met Rong Sheng, she suspected her mother was from the Great Wei. After meeting Rong Sheng, he said their souls from another world had been arranged with their own identities by Wu Dao, and none of them were ordinary, so her mother was the same. But even Rong Sheng didn't know her mother's identity. If she wanted to find out, she could only rely on herself to investigate. It's a pity then. The Great Wei once had a famous beauty who looked exactly like you, Miss Su. It seems I've been too homesick, and thus mistaken someone else for her, Mu Fei said with a tone containing an apology, very obligingly nodding to Su Yingxue in apology. To her, his behavior wasn't humility but seemed like a habit ingrained over many years. Mu Fei wanted to change it, but couldn't. This habit was an instinctive desire to please women. But after being discovered by Su Yingxue, a hint of annoyance quickly flashed through his eyes. Ah Jing seemed to notice too, as the atmosphere in the room turned a bit gloomy. Young master, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Shut up. Mu Fei's roar was hoarse with rage, startling Ah Jing. She quickly bowed and left the room. Seeing this, Su Yingxue stood up to take her leave. If there's nothing wrong, Master Mu, I will take my leave. She didn't like Mu Fei and so didn't stay long. Loving her means possessing her. When she came out, she held Ah Jing's hand and asked her, have you thought it over? Do you want me to save you and help you leave? Mu Fei is unpredictable and must be a harsh and ruthless person. Following him, you're bound to run into trouble. Despite having gone through the death of her parents and all sorts of vicissitudes, Ah Jing was still a girl with a pure heart. Su Yingxue couldn't bear to see her sullied by the ghost market or to die a horrible and tortured death. Ah Jing shook her head, her clear eyes looking at Su Yingxue. Sister Yingxue, I'm fine, the young master is very good, it's just that his temper is somewhat unpredictable. I just need to leave him immediately when he gets angry, so he won't hurt me. I don't want to hurt him either. Ah Jing was not willing herself, and Su Yingxue could not force her. She patted Ah Jing on the shoulder, I'll leave an escape route for you. If one day you can't hold on anymore, just go find Alt Hong, he will send you back to the surface. Ah Jing smiled gratefully at Su Yingxue. Thank you, Sister Yingxue. Alt Jing. Mu Fei's voice came from inside. Ah Jing immediately responded, Young master, I'm coming. After bidding farewell to Su Yingxue, she went inside. Su Yingxue stood outside the door for a long time, and not hearing any screams or the like, she finally left with peace of mind. On the way, she asked Al Hong, Mu Fei is clearly an unpredictable person, why wouldn't he hurt Ah Jing? Perhaps has taken a liking to her beauty, or it's just a novelty for the moment, or maybe he has truly fallen for her and wants to keep her by his side. Ah Hong analyzed with Su Yingxue. All of these are possibilities. Su Yingxue scoffed lightly. Mu Fei is clearly sick, how could he truly love someone? Miss Su, your normal thinking is correct, but who among the people in this ghost market is normal? The people and events here are unpredictable. Did Hua Yi, who adored Mu Fei for many years, not end up being killed by him? As for the female servant Er Jing, perhaps she will be adored by Mu Fei for many years, or perhaps, years later, she will kill Mu Fei. Everything is possible in the ghost market. After all, those living here come up with new tricks every day, endlessly. So Ah Hong doesn't find anything odd anymore. Oh. Su Yingxue nodded her head, not having much to say, but she had just made a promise to Ah Jing, so she still needed to ask Er Hong to convey this matter to his crazy master. Ah Hong chuckled, doing business with the master comes at a cost, he won't agree to this condition for nothing. Would this medical book personally written by Sister Rong Sheng get his agreement? Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow. Ah Hong's lips curled slightly. The master covets Princess Rong Sheng, her handwriting would certainly make the master agree. But this book was just given to you by Princess Rong Sheng, are you willing to use it for a trade like this? It seems like you don't really cherish Rong Sheng's sentiment, do you? Su Yingxue replied coolly, I have already memorized it all. This was not because she had to make a deal with Chu Yifeng, was it? She had already kept the contents in her head, so the handwriting of Rong Sheng could serve as a way out for Alt Jing. Rong Sheng is a fairy, she probably wouldn't mind her doing this. Ah Hong took out a piece of white silk and wrapped the book, holding it in his hands. The master will keep an eye on this female servant for you. Su Yingxue nodded her head, and seeing Ah Hong holding the book written by Rong Sheng, not daring to touch it, she couldn't help but sigh, if it's cherished so much, then why must one resort to poisoning her? To love someone, must one possess them so forcefully? His past with Rong Sheng. Su Yingxue didn't understand Chu Yifeng's feelings for Rong Sheng. Right now, finding a way to deal with Wu Dao was more important to her. She studied what Rong Sheng had written in his book and came up with a plan, but first she went to a tavern. Ah Hong, holding the book written by Rong Sheng, didn't dare to even touch its corners with his own hands. He presented it to Chu Yihan, along with the silk it was wrapped in, and washed and dried his hands in front of Chu Yihan. Chu Yihan held Rong Sheng's book in his palm, gently caressing it, a devilish curve forming at the corner of his mouth. Sister's handwriting, after practicing for so long, is still like a child's scribbles. He remembered when he first met Rong Sheng, she was like a fairy high above, proficient in everything. But her handwriting alone was unbearably ugly. He was born into the royal family and began studying literature and calligraphy at the age of 3. Naturally, his handwriting was much better than Rong Sheng's. He wrote a piece of calligraphy for Rong Sheng, and she said, it looks as if it was printed from a textbook. Although he didn't fully understand, he thought it must be a unique compliment. Later on, as Rong Sheng taught him how to trick Wu Dao and become a modern person, he taught her calligraphy in return. Unfortunately, even though he had come to know the kind of world Rong Sheng described as modern, she still couldn't produce beautiful handwriting. Ah Hong was used to it. Whenever he got something from Rong Sheng, Chu Yihan's eyebrows would light up with joy. But he had to tell Chu Yihan, Master, the 9th prince has been defeated and is hiding outside the city. The situation for Qin Muyan of the Great Wei dynasty isn't good either. The West Pavilion Master seems to be coming to see you, Master. Are you prepared? In previous years, Wu Dao repeatedly tested Chu Yihan, nearly taking his life time after time. He had survived from the edge of the knife and the sea of fire, yet Wu Dao still appeared from time to time. If Chu Yihan showed any behavior in front of him inconsistent with Wu Dao's expectations, Wu Dao would certainly take his life. Moreover, this time, it concerned their grand plan to eliminate Wu Dao. To this day, he had not seen any ingenious plans from Chu Yihan. He feared that in the end, their efforts would be in vain. Chu Yihan scoffed disdainfully, a wisp of hair falling on his chest, sliding over his smooth skin, his expression one of indolent sloth. Isn't there still a Su Yingxue in the ghost market? If they want to kill Wu Dao, let her figure it out herself. He had given her a chance, and that was enough. Outside Yungui City, atop a steep mountain with a rugged path, stood a palace carved by the divine work of spirits. The palace was lavish and majestic, but behind it laid a cliff thousands of feet high. Hidden between the mountain and the clouds, even its fresh air couldn't be graced by sunlight. Hong Lian walked through a colored fountain and into the palace, observing that everything there was incongruous with their era. Had she not served Wu Dao for so long, Hong Lian would never have known what European-style architecture was. Red walls and yellow roofs were replaced by white, the great hall ceiling hung several tens of meters high, even festooned with crystalline objects that dangled from the roof like tassels. Wu Dao said these were crystal chandeliers. But without electricity, he placed luminous pearls in the room, casting a beautiful glow Hong Lian had never seen before. However, when Wu Dao was present, the luminous pearls were covered. He couldn't be exposed to light. In the darkness, Hong Lian approached Wu Dao and knelt down. Pavilion Master, as you predicted, Chu Yihan, grief-stricken from the loss of Su Yingxue and with frequent bouts of bloodthirst, has faced repeated defeats in battle. Now he only has 20,000 troops, who have been separated from old General Su's forces, and is retreating outside Yungui City. Beheading her for public display. Wu Dao nodded, his voice hoarse and aged. How about Qin Muyan? He's in a better position than Chu Yihan. Beeling can't take him down for the moment, but following your method, we poisoned his soldiers. Now half of his troops are paralyzed on the ground, unable to move. Has been forced into retreat and is now not far from Yungui City. Thieve all come, Wu Dao said with a hint of excitement in his raspy voice. He twirled his black leather-gloved wrist, and in his right hand, he held a white box with carvings Hong Lian had never seen before, so beautiful and unfamiliar. Hong Lian had always been curious. Pavilion Master, this box is very pretty, but what exactly is inside? Whenever Wu Dao was in the hall, he consistently held this box, but it seemed light as if it contained nothing. You shouldn't ask about things that don't concern you. Wu Dao turned to Hong Lian with an implicit warning. Unable to see his eyes, Hong Lian was still affected by his dark and oppressive aura, the air around them instantly tinged with gloominess. She quickly knelt. Yes, Pavilion Master, your subordinate was presumptuous. She was about to leave when Wu Dao suddenly murmured as if talking to himself, the time has not yet come. In a few days, she will also arrive, and then this world will no longer be mine to enjoy alone. She. Hong Lian dared not ask more, but she guessed that Wu Dao was planning to summon someone else from another world. Just like Long Shuli, Rong Sheng, Han Yuan, and Chu Ifeng, who he had brought before. Each of them was a remarkable figure capable of dominating a nation on their own. Although Hong Lian envied and resented them, she never thought about competing with these individuals. She knew she couldn't win, but Su Yingxue was already dead. As the daughter of Long Shuli, winning against Su Yingxue was akin to beating the most formidable among them, Long Shuli, wasn't it? With this thought, she felt balanced again in her heart. 3 days later, outside Yungui City, both Chu Yihan and Qin Muyan were badly injured, driven into a corner by the troops of Han Yuan and Beeling. Han Yuan, dressed in a sumptuously complex princess robe, stood at the forefront of the formation. She looked up proudly and smiled at Chu Yihan at the city gates. Your Highness, you have no escape now. As long as you agree to spend the rest of your life serving me obediently, I promise I will ask my teacher to spare your life. Chu Yihan, covered in blood, was trembling as he held the Qing frost sword, yet even at his last breath, he did not lose his regal demeanor. His eyes emitted a cold and bloodthirsty light as he slowly spat out 3 words, "Dream on." Han Yuan angrily waved her sleeve, "You still won't submit. Do I need to break your pride and make you kneel before me?" She adored Chu Yihan's unyielding spirit, which is why she was willing to give him a chance to serve her, but she couldn't believe how ungrateful he was. She scoffed, "Chu Yihan, even if you don't submit to me, you'll never have another woman in this lifetime. The man I like can only belong to me. Any woman that covets the man I desire has only one fate, death. Just like Su Yingxue." Han Yuan laughed triumphantly. There was nothing that made her happier than knowing that Su Yingxue had died at the hands of Wu Dao. "You're not worthy to mention her." With a roar of rage, a knife was thrown towards Han Yuan. Han Yuan was startled. If not for Yun Dan deflecting the knife and falling injured, she would have been split in 2 by Qin Muyan's blade. Qin Muyan, also drenched in blood, exuded an even more magnificent heroic spirit. "Han Yuan, if you have the courage, face me in a duel. Even though you're a woman, I won't hesitate to behead you and display it for all to see." At the crucial moment, Su Yingxue disappeared. Qin Muyan? Han Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly, his tone carrying a hint of disdain. "Are you reminiscing about your beloved Su Yingxue? Unfortunately, once she's dead, she's dead. Her body has already been picked clean by the fish. You couldn't have her in life, and even less in death." Han Yuan's gaze turned vicious. "Kill him. Any man who fancied Su Yingxue should die. They are as loathsome as that wretched woman." Behind her, 10,000 troops moved in unison. They thought they could kill Qin Muyan and capture Chu Yihan alive, but with the gates of Yungui City flung wide open, not only did it provide Chu Yihan and Qin Muyan with a route of retreat, but it also trapped her between 2 fires, leaving her like a turtle caught in a jar. Atop the city tower of Yungui City, Chu Yifeng approached in a purple robe billowing in the wind. When the breeze lifted, his languid and sensual form was exposed to onlookers' eyes. The corner of his mouth curved into a sexy arc. Is such a woman even worthy of Pavilion Master's brother attending to her? Ridiculous. Ah Hong stood beside Chu Yifeng and said indifferently, "Some people, once lifted too high, do indeed seem to lose their sight. Take Han Yuan for instance, who, having arrived from another time and lived in luxury for so many years, no longer understood that she was merely a pawn, wielding Wu Dao's power and strutting around arrogantly. Where is Yingxue? The exact location of Wu Dao's lair." Chu Yihan stepped forward with the Qingfeng sword, urging Chu Yifeng on. His temperament was such that once he struck an enemy, he aimed for a lethal blow to prevent future problems, and he would never give his foes a chance to catch their breath. Now was the perfect time to eliminate Han Yuan and kill Wu Dao. At the mention of Su Yingxue by Chu Yihan, Qin Muyan was both startled and overjoyed. "She's really not dead. Quickly, take your highness to see her. One must see her safe and sound." Chu Yifeng raised an eyebrow, directing their gaze towards the rear. One of his subordinates knelt before him to report, "Master, Miss Su is not in the ghost market. We were unable to find her." "Have you checked Shilu?" Alt Hong's brows furrowed slightly. Not being able to find Su Yingxue at such a critical moment was no trivial matter. "We checked, but Miss Su was not there. Miss Su's room was orderly. She must have left on her own accord." "Left on her own? Then it has nothing to do with Pavilion Master." Chu Yifeng spread his hands towards Chu Yihan, signaling that it wasn't his negligence in taking care of your wife. "She left on her own." "Where would she go?" Qin Muyan was a bit worried. Chu Yihan frowned slightly. She would never disregard the bigger picture. If she had disappeared, there must be a reason for it. Chu Yifeng brushed back a stray hair beside his ear, his sensual thin lips parting slightly. "Where Su Yingxue has gone is not of utmost importance right now. What's crucial is, if you wish to deal with Wu Dao, once you miss this village, there'll be no more shops to visit." The expressions on both Qin Muyan and Chu Yihan's faces grew more solemn. They both knew that the primary purpose of their journey was to eradicate Wu Dao. He was a cancer. If left to grow unchecked, the 4 kingdoms and 9 provinces would become his domain, and all the people would turn into his slave. "Deploy the troops," Chu Yihan's lips barely moved as he issued the cold command. Behind him, Su Hao, clad in battle armor, relayed the order, deploy the troop. Qin Muyan also got his troops ready, planning to strike a fatal blow to Wu Dao. Before Chu Yihan and Qin Muyan left the city, they ordered Mo Qi, find her, and ensure her safety at all costs. Defeating Wu Dao was certainly important, but if anything happened to Su Yingxue, nothing else mattered. Mo Qi knelt, his voice resolute. Yes, one will protect the princess thoroughly. Han Yuan's defeat and escape. Upon witnessing the siege of Chu Yihan and Qin Muyan's formidable armies, Han Yuan immediately ordered the Qi state troops to resist, gritting her teeth in hatred. Why do they still have soldiers and horses? Haven't they already been defeated? Chu Yihan has been so badly injured, has already hidden away in Yungui City. How could he still lead troop? Princess, please stay calm and cautious. Let's first retreat a bit to avoid getting hurt by these people. As for the 9th prince, perhaps someone in Yungui City has saved him. I just saw that the person leading the troops is Su Hao, not the 9th prince, Yun Dan advised in a low voice, standing beside Han Yuan. Her mind was intricate, but she also pondered some perplexing points. For instance, why the army that just now seemed like a defeated rabble suddenly became as fierce as a legion of tigers and wolves. Su Hao, Su Yingxu's brother. Pass my command, bring me his head. One will grant 10,000 gold and a marquisate to the one who accomplishes this. A trace of bloodlust flashed in Han Yuan's eyes. She wanted not just Su Yingxu's death but also for all those who loved her to accompany her to hell. They don't deserve to live in this world with her. Yun Dan conveyed her order but almost failed to make it back to her side. Having been struck by an arrow in the back, she gasped for air as she ran to Han Yuan, her mouth full of blood. Princess, hurry. There's an ambush. Qin Muyan isn't injured at all, and Su Hao's army is majestic, not resembling one that has lost a battle. Their numbers are increasing. How can this be? Where are Bilink's troops? Is Rongsheng dead? Why doesn't he come out and command his troops? Han Yuan stood atop the carriage, shouting arrogantly. An arrow from Su Hao whistled through the air, scattering her hair and pulling her down from the carriage by tangling in her tresses. Ah! Han Yuan screamed in terror. Had Yun Dan not acted swiftly and cut her hair in time, Han Yuan would have been smashed to death. With Yun Dan cushioning Han Yuan's fall and seriously injured, she still urged, Princess, run quickly. Han Yuan quickly stood up, foregoing her princess image, and fled immediately towards the palace at the top of Wudao Mountain. Follow her. Qin Muyan commanded his troops to pursue Han Yuan. Meanwhile, Su Hao followed Chu Yihan's military orders, cutting off Han Yuan's troops at the base of the mountain, causing her to flee in disarray, isolated and without support. As Han Yuan fled towards the mountain, she ran into Chu Yifeng midway. Seeing him as if he were a savior, she flung herself at him. Senior brother. Chu Yifeng raised an eyebrow, his alluring eyes filled with a roguish charm. Isn't this my junior sister? Get up quickly. Why such a sorry state? You are a princess of a nation. This is unbecoming of your image. Chu Yifeng pretended to be accommodating, and Han Yuan saw no flaw in his act. She even thought that inside Chu Yifeng's body was a soul like hers that had transmigrated and said, Senior brother, don't you find it strange? Clearly, you pretended to save Chu Yihan earlier, striking at him to inflict more injuries. Yet now, he can still lead troops, and Su Hao and Qin Muyan have been relentlessly pursuing me. I had no choice but to escape to find our teacher. If she didn't turn to Wu Dao, she was certain to be dismembered by Qin Muyan's horses. Didn't Chu Yihan fail to show up? He should have died in the city. Now, you go to the teacher in peace. Come, let your senior brother help you. Chu Yifeng kindly helped Han Yuan up. Han Yuan had no guard up against him. However, while walking on the mountain path, she casually spoke to Chu Yifeng, Senior brother, do you still remember the way to our teacher's place? I don't recall it very well. Giving peace back to the world. Chu Yifeng sneered internally. Han Yuan was still trying to test him at this time. He flicked his long hair. Junior sister, we've followed our teacher for so many years. Do you want the teacher to see that you've regressed to being useless? To Wu Dao, a useless chess piece was destined to die. If Han Yuan gave Wu Dao that impression, Wu Dao would dare to kill her immediately, then place another soul into her body to take her place. Han Yuan shivered, cold sweat streaming down her back. What are you talking about, senior brother? How could I possibly regress? I'll take you to the teacher. In order to prove she hadn't regressed or become a waste, Han Yuan quickened her pace, leading Chu Ifeng up the mountain. Chu Ifeng snorted coldly and followed behind her. Han Yuan was not completely useless to him. For instance, he had never been to Wu Dao's palace. Wu Dao was extremely meticulous and had only allowed Han Yuan and Rong Sheng, who were unable to perform martial arts, to visit. And upon returning, he erased Rong Sheng's memory to prevent her from going there without permission. As for Han Yuan, on the way, she told Chu Ifeng, the teacher doesn't allow me to remember the place either, but the drug he used was developed by me, so of course, I have ways to preserve my own memory. I see. Chu Ifeng nodded. Han Yuan led Chu Ifeng up the mountain and upon seeing Wu Dao, she started pouring out her grievances. Teacher, Chu Yihan didn't fall for it. Down the mountain, Qin Muyan and Su Hao also made their move. Their offensive was too fierce. I had no choice but to seek you out. Foolish. Who asked you to come? Wu Dao's dark gaze shifted to Chu Ifeng, and his hoarse voice was icy cold. What's going on? Why hadn't Chu Yihan died yet? And why had Chu Ifeng appeared here? Chu Ifeng stepped forward nonchalantly. Teacher, after all, Chu Yihan is the 9th prince. He escaped in Yungui City, but I've already sent people after him. He won't survive the day. Wu Dao snorted coldly. You too, if you ruin my big plans, I'll take your lives. Han Yuan trembled all over. Accustomed to strutting around as a princess, she now realized in front of Wu Dao that she was not any princess but just a student brought over by Wu Dao. If she didn't do as he said and didn't satisfy him, he would kill her. Her life was in Wu Dao's hands. Han Yuan said in a low voice, Teacher, no, I've already sent the Qi State Army to resist Qin Muyan. With Chu Yihan dead, the troops led by Su Hao won't be able to amount to much. Your wish will certainly be fulfilled, and you will become the supreme ruler of the world. It had better be so. Wu Dao seated himself in the highest chair. This was a chair carved out of black jade, a color as reclusive as Wu Dao, but this black jade was also a dragon throne. The dragon was, after all, a symbol of power and domination. Even Wu Dao from a different world believed this to be true. He sent Hong Lian to check the situation at the foot of the mountain, but instead of news of the enemy's defeat, he received, Princess, disaster has struck. The 9th prince is not dead. He's leading his army, surrounding the mountain, and even charging up, saying he wants to. In his excitement, Yundan accidentally met Wu Dao's gaze and nearly had his heart ripped out from fright. Wants tow hat. Irritatingly, Wu Dao was drawn by his attention, and his somber gaze fell upon him. Yundan lowered his head, not daring to answer. Han Yuan kicked him hard. The teacher is asking you a question. Speak up quickly. Yundan's pale lips trembled for a moment before responding. He said he wants to kill your teacher and give this world some peace. The final game. Chu Ifeng lightly tugged at the corner of his mouth. TSK, such an overconfident person should be trapped by the teacher in a secret room and slowly played to death. Han Yuan's heart skipped a beat. Chu Yihan is overestimating himself. Once caught, let me handle him on teacher's behalf, so the teacher won't have to bother. The man she liked was naturally supposed to fall into her hands, to be tormented by her. She had just tempered his sharpness, so he would kneel at her feet, willingly serving her. Wu Dao didn't pay any attention to the back and forth between these two, instead pondering why Chu Yihan hadn't died. Yungui City was Chu Ifeng's territory, and even if he was somewhat rebellious, he was still brought there by his teacher. It made no sense for him to still harbor brotherly affection for Chu Yihan. Ifeng, go bring Chu Yihan and Qin Muyan to me. If they resist, kill. Wu Dao ordered coldly and viciously. All right, teacher, I'll go now and bring their heads to you, Chu Feng replied languidly, his lazy posture carrying a sovereign's air. Wait, senior brother, don't kill Chu Yihan. Han Yuan still wanted to spare Chu Yihan's life, but Wu Dao suddenly glared at her. If you can't bear it, go die with him. Upon hearing this, Han Yuan shuddered, immediately turning to face Wu Dao. I was wrong, teacher. Please, kill him. It doesn't matter. After she spoke those words, Wu Dao's animosity towards her lessened. Although Han Yuan felt it was a pity for Chu Yihan to die, compared to her own life, he truly wasn't worth mentioning. Perhaps in the 4 kingdoms and 9 provinces, there wouldn't be anyone like him with a divine countenance that fascinated her. But one must be alive to enjoy being served by them. If she were dead, there would be nothing left. Liking him was one thing, but deep inside her modern soul, she lacked the foolish sentimentality to die for love. Dead people are stupid and deserve nothing. Chu Feng went down the mountain and came face to face with Chu Yihan and Qin Muyan. Both were commanders of armies, awe-inspiring and imposing, nowhere near their prior wounded and dispirited condition. Excitement sparked in Qin Muyan's eyes. Is Wu Dao on the mountain? Chu Feng nodded. Yes, the mountain's defenses aren't hard to breach. No matter how many assassins the West Pavilion had or how powerful their martial arts were, they were insignificant compared to thousands of troops. Yet Chu Yihan frowned. Did you see her? Her referred to Su Yingxue. Without news of her, he continued to feel uneasy. No, but you sent Mo Chi to find her. It would be hard for anything to happen to her. Chu Feng pointed towards the mountain. Now was the best opportunity to eliminate Wu Dao. Missing it would lead to a catastrophe for the 4 kingdoms and 9 provinces. Without hesitation, Chu Yihan ordered Su how to hold the base of the mountain, while he and Qin Muyan led the troops straight up the mountain to attack Wu Dao's palace. Inside the grand hall, the sounds of combat grew closer, causing Wu Dao to furrow his brows. What's going on? Chu Feng had gone to eliminate the people below. The noise shouldn't have traveled up. Han Yuan was actually excited. Senior brother must be overpowering the enemy, capturing them all alive, right? As she excitedly rushed out, an arrow struck her, piercing through her body and pinning her to the wall. With a push, the powerful inner strength behind the arrow inflicted severe damage to Han Yuan, causing her to spit out blood violently. How could this happen? Han Yuan's eyes widened in disbelief. Wasn't Chu Feng supposed to be capturing people? Why were they attacked instead? Call Hong Lian over. Sensing something was amiss, Wu Dao ordered someone by his side. He captured Rongsheng. Wu Dao sat on the dragon throne, his hands gripping the black jade-carved dragon heads, his body shrouded in black from head to toe. He watched Chu Yihan and Qin Muyan charge towards him, their momentum surging, without showing any superfluous expression. Only his voice, already hoarse, sounded even more sinister. Chu Feng, you dare to betray me. Chu Feng hadn't charged to the front, yet Wu Dao mentioned him first. He responded calmly, that's right, I think this should have been within your expectations. Expected? Ha. Wu Dao laughed coldly, just because I tested you a few years ago, so you hold a grudge against your teacher, me? He arranged for his younger brother to bring people to kill him today? If Wu Dao hadn't been so nonchalant, Chu Feng might have thought he remembered those days of living worse than death incorrectly. But certain memories are etched in the bones, intertwined with the soul. His lips curled up with an extremely wicked smile. I wouldn't say I hold a grudge. Simply put, I also want to kill you. The reason wasn't very noble, not for the sake of the 4 kingdoms and 9 provinces or anything, but simply because he wanted to kill Wu Dao. This person was too cruel. His existence made him uncomfortable. You also want to kill me? Wu Dao's eyes narrowed dangerously. Don't forget. It was I who brought you here. Without me, you would still be in that laboratory, endlessly repeating those boring experiments. You'd never see the light of day. Spend a lifetime locked in a laboratory, no matter if one made world-shaking scientific discoveries, no matter how much one contributed to the country, they could never stand at the pinnacle of power, sit in the position above 10,000 people. Such a life would be pitiful. It was he who took notice of him, allowing him the chance to come here, to borrow the identity of a prince and assume the position of Silver Moon Pavilion Master. All of this, it was all given to him by Wu Dao. I'm sorry, I've never seen what this so-called dark lab looks like. I, Chu Yifeng, was born a prince of the great Cheng dynasty, of noble identity, a dragon among men. Chu Yifeng's lips twisted into a light sneer. Everyone heard the sound of Wu Dao's sharp intake of breath. Did Rong Sheng help you deceive me? Wu Dao's eyes, filled with blood vessels, were barely visible. Ominous and terrifying. After training for so long, setting up for so long, and even testing repeatedly, Chu Yifeng wasn't the soul he had brought in. He was not his student. How? How could this be? Han Yuan was pinned against the wall, her eyes wide with shock. Her medical skills saved her from being killed by Chu Yihan's arrow, as she used surgical tools to remove the arrow, but she had lost too much blood and her complexion was deathly pale. She begged Wu Dao for help. Teacher, save me. I will never betray you. I will always be your student. We came here together, didn't we? Chu Yifeng wasn't a modern soul, but she was. She still wanted to share the prosperity with Wu Dao. She also wanted to be the emperor of a nation. Useless thing, you can't even save yourself, why should I keep you? Wu Dao's attitude was exceptionally cold. In his eyes, Han Yuan was just a student who did tasks for him, useful when needed, no effort spared when not. Especially in the current situation. Chu Yifeng, who you are, is irrelevant, Wu Dao said with a cold laugh. With a wave of his hand, Hong Lian seized someone, appearing behind him. Isn't that Princess Beeling? Qin Muyan recognized Rong Sheng. He had met Rong Sheng previously when he had gone to Beeling City. She was memorable. Behind him, the soldiers of Beeling City were also shocked. Their princess was in Wu Dao's grasp. Let her go. Chu Yifeng's eyes turned blood red the moment he saw Rong Sheng being captured, a bloodthirsty gleam taking over his gaze. Chu Yifeng is also bloodthirsty. If you don't kill these people, I will kill her immediately. Wu Dao raised his hand, clad in a black glove, and with a slight movement of his fingers, Hong Lian throttled Rong Sheng's neck. Rong Sheng's face conveyed a look of agony. Chu Yifeng's heart felt as if it had split open, and he started to lose his reason. I'll say it once more, let her go. If Wu Dao dared to kill Rong Sheng, he would ensure Wu Dao was ground to dust. East Pavilion Master, don't rush. The strength in my grip won't let Princess Rong Sheng die so quickly, but if you don't listen to the Pavilion Master's words, a cold smile spilled from Hong Lian's lips. Do you believe that if you touch her again, whatever happened to me will be returned to you tenfold, 100-fold? Chu Yifeng's eyes were bloodshot, cold, and bloodthirsty. He could be capriciously charming at times, but now he resembled a demon who had crawled out of hell, with a sinister, bloodthirsty light in his eyes. You have no right to negotiate terms with me. Kill these two people, or she will be the one to die, Wu Dao said in an even tone, obviously not regarding Rong Sheng as his student, caring only for her utility. His gaze fell upon Chu Yihan and Qin Muyan. Chu Yifeng almost didn't hesitate, drawing the knife from Ah Hong's hand and striking at Qin Muyan. Boom, the doors of the hall were split open. Chu Yifeng's moves were fierce, each strike lethal. Qin Muyan was forced to defend himself, looking towards Chu Yihan. Chu Yihan, what will you decide? This man was Chu Yihan's own brother. If not for their alliance, he wouldn't have tolerated so many attacks. Chu Yihan blocked Chu Yifeng's blade with the Qingfeng sword, stepping in front of Qin Muyan. Chu Yifeng, calm down. Enough talk. No one is allowed to hurt her, no one. Chu Yifeng yelled with all his might, his moves against Chu Yihan merciless, each slash aimed with lethal ferocity. Chu Yifeng, stop. Rong Sheng struggled to speak. She couldn't bear to watch this man go mad for her. Her death should not involve others. And if anyone must die, it should be Wu Dao. He's a madman, you won't be able to wake him, Wu Dao laughed darkly. Rong Sheng suddenly saw a cunning glint in his eyes and couldn't believe it. You knew all along? Chu Yifeng was not a spirit from another world. He played his part very well, said Wu Dao, with a hint of scorn in his eyes. He did not know that Chu Yifeng had not died, that Rong Sheng had secretly saved him. But that was not important. The subsequent trials he put Chu Yifeng through were tortures and aggressive compulsion, as long as Chu Yifeng loved Rong Sheng to the point of madness. Whose soul he was didn't matter at all, did it? By capturing Rong Sheng, he could always seize Chu Yifeng's lifeblood. Just like Chu Yihan, he was born with an innate bloodthirst. Wu Dao had forced him to manifest the symptoms in the past years. Now, let the two brothers fight it out. Swish. Chu Yifeng's blade sliced open Chu Yihan's back. If not for Qin Muyan's timely assistance, Chu Yihan would have been gravely wounded. Qin Muyan pulled Chu Yihan back, warning in a cold voice, "If you give in any further, you'll be a ghost under his blade." He could hardly imagine that being his real brother, how could he deal such harsh blows to Chu Yihan? "He's the same as me." Chu Yihan coughed up blood, the sight of Chu Yifeng's blood-red eyes pulling at his heart with a wrenching pain. All of this, because of Wu Dao. He joined forces with Qin Muyan, and they subdued Chu Yifeng. Chu Yihan pressed down hard on Chu Yifeng's back. "Chu Yifeng, wake up. Let go of me." Chu Yifeng, his eyes blood-red, looked up at Rong Sheng. She was pale from the difficulty breathing, and her eyes closed painfully. Rong Sheng pushed him away. "Sister. Sister." Chu Yifeng roared furiously. "Rong Sheng cannot be harmed by anyone. No one can touch her. Only he can torment her, trap her, and keep her by his side." The scene of brothers Chu Yifeng and Chu Yihan devastating each other greatly pleased Wu Dao. When the three of them fought to a mutual defeat, Wu Dao triggered the mechanism under his command, and the assassins from Silver Moon Pavilion streamed in, tightly encircling the three while their respective troops were blocked outside. "Chu Yihan, we are surrounded." Qin Muyan realized, grinding his teeth in frustration. If he could free up his hands even a little, it wouldn't be this situation. But the moment he let go, this Chu Yifeng would take the lives of all of them, leading them to a mutual destruction. Rong Sheng maintained a pained expression on her face, deceiving Wu Dao, and she swiftly pulled out a syringe from her sleeve and stabbed it into Hong Lian's body. A numbing sensation spread throughout her body, and Hong Lian instantly felt dizzy and fell backward. As a result, Rong Sheng was able to break free. With a cold voice, she called out, "Chu Yifeng. Sister." Chu Yifeng immediately stopped and turned to look at her. His heart was lifted high with worry. Rong Sheng pressed a syringe against her carotid artery. "This drug can kill me instantly. Chu Yifeng, wake up." Even at the brink of life and death, her face, cold and detached as a deity's, showed little expression. But nobody could see the reluctance and heartache in her eyes. All Feng, she could no longer accompany him day and night. Over the past years, she had devoted all her energy to protecting him, fearing he would suffer even the slightest harm. She helped him conceal his identity and taught him to be a modern man with an open mind. He had done it all. Yet she still couldn't protect him. Wu Dao had injured him. "I'm sorry." Rong Sheng closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and pressed down on the syringe. "Don't. Rong Sheng, you're not allowed to die. You cannot die." Chu Yifeng's eyes bloodshot as he lunged toward Rong Sheng. Wu Dao, clutching a box, moved swiftly beside Rong Sheng and seized her wrist. Rong Sheng frowned in disgust. "Let go." She hated being touched by anyone. "You are my student. You are not permitted to die without my consent." Wu Dao's voice ominously spread throughout the hall. Rong Sheng struggled vigorously in his grip, sensing that Wu Dao's body wasn't in good shape. His illness had even worsened. "Wu Dao, you are unprincipled and immoral, unworthy of living in this world." Rong Sheng gripped the syringe in her right hand, intending to stab it into Wu Dao's body. A fierce glint crossed Wu Dao's eyes. "Your usefulness spared your life, but seeking death." He overpowered Rong Sheng, holding her right hand and mercilessly stabbed the syringe into her body. "Ah!" Rong Sheng's face turned deathly pale. "Wu Dao, how dare you?" Chu Yifeng's eyes were on the verge of splitting open as he charged madly forward, stabbing Wu Dao with a knife, and fiercely pushing him away. He caught Rong Sheng's frail body, his eyes filled with panic. "Sister." Relying on him, Rong Sheng had a tender look, opened her mouth intending to say something, but suddenly pushed Chu Yifeng away. "Be careful." Thud. The knife lodged in Wu Dao's body pierced into Rong Sheng's abdomen. What she blocked was precisely Chu Yifeng's back. Chu Yifeng screamed in frenzy. "Ah!" He made a move to kill Wu Dao, but for some reason, he couldn't catch up at all. Wu Dao was like a shadow. Chu Yifeng couldn't hit him, but he got stabbed from behind by him. Cough. Blood dripped from the corner of Chu Yifeng's mouth. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.